Chapter 903. Ao Dien Laozu did not feel any pressure when he retreated. He had colluded with the human cultivators to plot against the human cultivators. After all, he was just using them as a tool, and he could even cause internal strife among the human race. There was no need for him to feel guilty about anything. It was really difficult for Feng Shutao, who was still trying his best to attack the barrier entrance that was shrinking under Lu Ping's obstruction. He was still planning to attack Tian Kong Laozu, but he did not know that Ao Dien Laozu had already disappeared without a trace. Ao Dien, please wait for a moment. The old man will be here soon. Even though Feng Shutao could only use 50 to 60% of his abilities in front of the barrier entrance, Lu Ping was still in danger under Feng Shutao's attack. Seeing Tian Kong Laozu's signal, Lu Ping began to go easy on Ao Dien. He pretended to be unable to take it anymore, but he used his divine consciousness to seal the entrance to prevent Feng Shutao from discovering that Ao Dien had retreated. After hearing Feng Shutao's roar, Lu Ping immediately took advantage of the situation. He stomped on the ground and borrowed the momentum from Feng Shutao's impact to throw himself backward. It looked like he was really sent flying by someone. Feng Shutao was overjoyed and rushed in. He shouted, "Ao Dien, my friend, the old man is here to help you." But what he saw was Lu Ping's mocking and pitiful expression. The mountain-splitting axe had expanded to 30 feet in the sky, and the blade alone took up 2/3 of its length. "Ao Dien, you've tricked me!" Feng Shutao roared in anger. Tian Kong Laozu's attack was already aimed at Feng Shutao, who was caught off guard. Feng Shutao barely managed to use the Happy Rod, a first disaster spiritual treasure that Laozu had given him after he had reached the mid-Dharma stage. Dang! The sound of metal clashing made Lu Ping want to plug his ears. The merry pestle let out a series of whines as it was sent flying away by the axe. Feng Shutao didn't manage to dodge in time, and blood splashed everywhere. His entire left forearm was cut off by the remaining power of the axe, and the dust that was stirred up by the axe covered the entire space. When the dust settled, there was no trace of Feng Shutao in the sixth barrier. All that was left was a pool of blood on the ground and a forearm rolling in the dust. Although the fight had been short, both Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping had consumed a large amount of their true origin energy and magic power. Now that the summit of the lone peak was right in front of them, they knew that sharpening one's axe wouldn't delay the work of cutting firewood. So, they took elixirs in the stronghold and held spirit stones in their hands to recover. Perhaps it was because when Ao Dien Laozu and Feng Shutao had set up the trap, they didn't take out the treasures in the sixth layer's formation space to make it look more realistic. At least, Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu were relieved to see the spirit sealing box, which had been knocked to the ground by the great fight but hadn't been broken. Tian Kong Laozu opened the spirit sealing box, and his eyes lit up. Then, under Lu Ping's curious gaze, he threw one of the items into Lu Ping's hands and said, "Let's keep these 2 items for ourselves. One for each of us." Lu Ping took the item that looked like a scroll. It seemed to be a charm, but Lu Ping didn't know what it was. So, he looked at Tian Kong Laozu with an inquisitive look. Tian Kong Laozu was pouring his true origin energy into the same scroll. Tian Kong Laozu saw that Lu Ping didn't know what it was, so he explained, "This is called a cloning charm. You only need to pour your true origin energy into it and activate it with your divine will. Then, you can turn it into an outer body clone with the same appearance as you. Although it doesn't have intelligence and can only attack crazily, and it doesn't have any magical power, it can be a good shield in a crisis. It can save your life." Lu Ping looked at the talisman in his hand with surprise. The blue-purple true origin in his hand surged out and he poured his own true origin into the talisman. Although the clone talisman could only be used once and had many restrictions, it was still a life-saving technique. Furthermore, judging from the 7-colored light on the surface of the talisman, the value of this clone talisman was most likely not inferior to that of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Because of the battle just now and the refining of this cloning charm, a lot of time had passed. After the 2 of them recovered, they began to break the 7th barrier. This was the last barrier on Lonely Peak. After breaking the 7th barrier, they would reach the top of Lonely Peak. In the seventh barrier, Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu had just put away a spirit-raising magic weapon. Lu Ping seemed to hear something and hesitated slightly. Tiankong Laozu saw this and asked, "What's wrong? Did you find something?" Lu Ping nodded and patted his chest. Linglong's wine cauldron flew out of the core space. Tiankong Laozu saw this wine cauldron was a novelty, but he was not surprised. He said, "This is the spirit treasure wine cauldron you subdued in Yingtian Dojo?" Linglong was well behaved. She knew that the person in front of her was a powerful cultivator. She stood up on the edge of the wine cauldron and said, "Linglong greets Laozu." Lu Ping knew that they had wasted enough time, so he asked, "Linglong, did you find anything?" Linglong reached out and patted, and the wine cauldron fell from midair. After a while, Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu both noticed the abnormality below. "I didn't expect there to be a mineral vein here." When Tiankong Laozu saw Linglong's wine cauldron fall to the ground, he immediately noticed the movement of the earth veins under his feet. Tiankong Laozu cultivated the fifth earth true body technique, which was one of the 5 true skills of Jinling, so he was extremely sensitive to the changes of the earth veins. Soon, he found that there was a mini mineral vein hidden in the ground under his feet. Lu Ping explained with a smile, "Linglong is not actually doing this for this mineral vein. She can use this mineral vein to explore the direction of the Lone Peak's earth veins. From there, she can determine the location of the Lone Peak spirit vein, and to a certain extent, exert influence on the spirit vein." The earth veins often formed a huge underground network underground. Whether it was the spirit vein, the spirit stone vein, or the spirit material vein, they were all inextricably linked to the earth veins. Linglong could directly trace the direction of the earth veins through these extended relationships, and to a certain extent, she could also sort out the earth veins. Tiankong Laozu immediately understood that Lu Ping was thinking about the large spirit vein in the Lone Peak. At this time, Linglong suddenly climbed out of the wine cauldron and said, Debao seems to have found the spirit vein, but he himself is trapped by the broken restriction formation deep underground." Lu Ping was shocked and said, "How is it? Is there any danger?" Linglong frowned and said, "I'll try." After saying that, the whole wine cauldron began to rotate above the ground, and below the wine cauldron was the location of the mini mineral vein. Lu Ping's divine sense could only go down a few dozen feet with the earth vein, and then it could not go any further. However, Tiankong Laozu's face was full of surprise. When Lu Ping looked down, he saw that the part of Tiankong Laozu's feet that was in contact with the ground had been covered by a layer of yellow fifth earth true essence. In just a moment, Linglong breathed a sigh of relief and climbed out and said, "Thanks to Laozu's help, Linglong, and Debao also has a 3-colored restriction breaking talisman on him. He has broken free from the broken restriction formation." Lu Ping breathed a sigh of relief, but then he heard Linglong said, "Someone on the Lone Peak has reached the peak first." As soon as Linglong's voice fell, a deafening sound of metal suddenly exploded. Ding! Linglong, who was clinging to the edge, fell into the wine cauldron, and even Tiankong Laozu and Lu Ping were shocked by the sudden sound of the bell. Fortunately, both of them were extraordinary cultivators. Tiankong Laozu was the first to wake up, and then Lu Ping also shook his head hard. "The sea bell has been rung." Tiankong Laozu held the mountain-splitting axe in his hand tightly and walked towards the 7th layer of the barrier. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "Martial uncle, since the sea bell has been rung, it proves that there is more than one clan that issued the sea bell. I'm afraid the sea bell has already caused a fight, so we don't have to worry." Tiankong Laozu nodded and said, "Even so, we have to be here, or we won't even be qualified to covet the sea bell." Rumble! The mountain-splitting axe fiercely smashed towards the 7th layer of the barrier, and Lu Ping's flowing sword followed closely behind. But this time, both of them left a way out, as they were afraid that they would be surrounded by the people on the peak the moment they broke through the barrier. Although the 7th layer of the barrier was stronger than the previous few layers, for the two of them, it was only a matter of time. However, just as the two of them broke through the barrier, dang! Another loud sound rang out. This time, Tiankong Laozu and Lu Ping were prepared, but they still had a splitting headache from the sound of the bell. The sound of the bell was too coincidental, and Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping did not dare to be careless. They endured the waves of attacks from their divine senses, and took out the mountain-splitting axe and fated person in autumn waters. Unexpectedly, no one took the opportunity to enter the barrier to launch a sneak attack. On the contrary, on the peak outside the barrier, the roar of the chaotic battle became louder. Tian Kong Laozu was the first to walk out of the barrier, and Lu Ping followed closely behind. In the middle of the peak, a huge bronze bell was suspended in the air. The huge body of the bell was engraved with countless mysterious runes and wave-like carvings. It was the legendary Sea Bell. At this time, fighting around the Sea Bell were Dong Yi Laozu of the Blue Sea Sect, Ao Dian Laozu of the Primordial Giant Crocodile Clan, Demon King Kong Jing of the Giant Whale Demon Clan, and Hai Hun Laozu of the Sea Flame Sect. The four mid-Dharma Laozu were fighting together, and each of them had a First Tribulation spiritual treasure in their hands. In terms of cultivation, Demon King Kong Jing was the most profound, but in terms of strength, Dong Yi Laozu of the Blue Sea Sect was the first to reach the peak with the Sea Transferring Order, and was the first to ring the Sea Bell. Through the Sea Transferring Order and the Changlu Sword, he had already gained some support from the sea. Hai Hun Laozu had an easy journey. Even though he did not have the Thin Water Sword, nor did he have the full preparation of the Demon Clan, nor did he have the powerful spiritual treasure of Jinling, he was the third person to reach the peak. At that time, Ao Dian had already fought with Dong Yi Laozu. Even though Hai Hun Laozu also coveted the Sea Bell at this time, he had no choice but to join forces with Dong Yi Laozu in an attempt to expel Ao Dian. Unexpectedly, at this time, Kong Jing Laozu suddenly attacked, and the whole scene suddenly became chaotic. Kong Jing Laozu took advantage of the chaos to ring the Sea Bell. To everyone's surprise, Patriarch Kong Jing also gained part of the Songhai Bell's recognition, and he rang the bell for the second time. Chapter 904. Among the three treasures of the Songhai, only the Songhai Bell was Laozu's natal spiritual treasure. Half of the reason why the three treasures of the Songhai were so famous was due to the Songhai Bell. Among the three treasures of the Songhai, the Sea Transfer Token was good at attacking, the Cloud Sail was good at defending, and only the Songhai Bell was really good at attacking and defending. However, what really made the Songhai Bell famous was the battle when Mara besieged the Songhai sect more than 10,000 years ago. After the establishment of the Songhai sect, Laozu wandered in the North Sea. His whereabouts were always uncertain. All the affairs of the Songhai sect were taken care of by his friends and followers, but he rarely cared about the situation of the Songhai sect. After that, the calamity of Mo Luo broke out. At that time, the calamity of Mo Luo targeted the newly established Azure Sea sect. The Songhai sect was in an emergency. The cultivators of the Songhai sect had no choice but to ask Songhai Laozu for help and ignite the talisman left by Songhai Laozu. When Songhai Laozu received the news, the Songhai sect was already in danger. At the critical moment, Songhai Laozu came from overseas alone. With the Cloud Sail as defense and the Sea Transfer Token as attack, he used the Thin Water Longstream Sword to kill all the way through Mara's encirclement and returned to the Songhai sect. The morale of the Songhai sect was greatly boosted. In this battle, there were 5 or 6 blood Mara and above that died in the hands of Songhai Laozu, and there were countless other major and minor repairs. However, not only was the encirclement of Mara not lifted, but more and more reinforcements surrounded the Songhai sect even tighter. Just when the Songhai sect began to be filled with an atmosphere of helplessness, Songhai Laozu made a move again. The huge Songhai Bell floated above the sect protection array of the Songhai sect. Just when the Songhai sect and Mara who surrounded the Songhai sect were at a loss, the Songhai Bell suddenly rang. Ding. The loud sound shook almost 1,000 miles. A ripple visible to the naked eye spread out from the center of the ocean bell. All the Asuras who probed the sea bell with their divine senses were all shaken by the sudden ringing of the sea bell, and their divine senses were all injured. The more serious ones even turned into idiots, and some even bled to death from their 7 orifices. However, this was not what Sin was afraid of. The most terrifying thing was the reaction of the demonic cultivators hidden among the Asuras when the sea bell rang. Mara was originally one body, but the number of demonic cultivators was usually far less than the Asura. However, the damage caused by demonic cultivators was not much less than the Asura, and the true reason why demonic cultivators were able to cause fear in the cultivation world was because of their insane innate ability to devour souls. Devil cultivators were born with tyrannical soul remembrance and were extremely aggressive. They often killed people without even realizing it. Moreover, they were often the eyes and ears of the Shura, and could often cause the Shura to display several times the damage. Be it human or demon cultivators, when faced with the soul-devouring abilities of fiendish cultivators or blood fiends, they would usually choose to retreat. In all the previous disasters of Mara, the demonic cultivators did not cause as much damage as the Asuras, but the fear they caused was far greater than the demonic cultivators. However, the moment the sea bell rang, the ones who suffered the most were not the Asuras, but the demonic cultivators hiding among the Asuras. Countless sharp screams came one after another, and the black fog that wrapped around the demonic cultivators collapsed in midair. Within a radius of 30 miles, almost no demonic cultivators survived, including 3 blood Shuras and 1 jade Shura. The second sea bell rang, and within a radius of 50 miles, only 2 jade demonic cultivators escaped with serious injuries. As for the remaining 5 blood demonic cultivators, 3 of their heads exploded on the spot, and the remaining 2 died silently. When the third sea bell rang, within a radius of 100 miles, hundreds of ordinary demonic cultivators were killed or injured. In addition to the number of dead and injured Shuras, after the third sea bell rang, the tens of thousands of Mara cultivators who had besieged the Blue Sea sect for nearly a month collapsed on the spot, and the siege of the Blue Sea sect was easily resolved by Ocean Laozu in such a shocking way. However, the strange thing was that although the sea bell was a powerful first calamity spiritual treasure, it should not have such a strong power. Ocean Laozu had also fought with others, but the sea bell had never exerted such great power again. It was not until Ocean Laozu fought with Mara several times that the sea bell finally regained its power in the Blue Sea sect when facing demonic cultivators. Only then did Ocean Laozu realize that the originally strong power of the sea bell was actually directed towards demonic cultivators. In the process of forging his own natal spiritual treasure, Ocean Laozu might have added some strange spiritual materials, or he might have unintentionally catered to some secret recipe. In short, the sea bell possessed a special technique that could cause great harm to demonic cultivators, and even Ocean Laozu himself could not explain the reason for this mutation. After the battle of the Blue Sea sect, in order to resist the calamity of Mara, the cultivation world of the North Sea once had a craze of forging clock-type magic treasures. However, there had never been a treasure like the sea bell. Because of this, the value of the sea bell was even more obvious. Unfortunately, Ocean Laozu's whereabouts were uncertain. In the end, no one knew where he went, and the sea bell also disappeared with him until Ocean Laozu's cave abode rose strangely from the bottom of the Earth Island. As Ocean Laozu's natal spiritual treasure, the sea bell was naturally not something that anyone could ring. The Blue Sea sect, where Dongi Laozu came from, regarded itself as the inheritor of Ocean Laozu. It also had the sea-transferring token, one of the 3 treasures of the sea, and Ocean Laozu's usual flying sword, the thin water sword, could ring the sea bell was naturally not surprising. However, Kong Jing Laozu could also ring the sea bell. What was going on? Dongi Laozu looked at Kong Jing Laozu with a livid face. The sea-transferring token in his hand led several streams of water in the void, rushing towards Kong Jing Laozu from different directions. Kong Jing Laozu laughed loudly. With the sky-quake hammer in his hand, he countered without showing any signs of weakness. The two immediately fell into a stalemate. Ao Dian Laozu and Hai Hun Laozu saw that Dongi Laozu and Kong Jing Laozu were suddenly fighting without a care in the world. Unexpectedly, the two tacitly did not make a move. Instead, they hit the sea bell floating in the sky at the same time. Two muffled sounds were heard. Although the sea bell was continuously shaken by the two's continuous attacks, the sound was not like a bell being struck. It was more like a fart. Ao Dian Laozu turned to Kong Jing, who was fighting with Dongi Laozu, and said, "Kong San, what is going on? How can you ring the sea bell?" Kong Jing laughed and said, "This is no secret. Si Laozu is a senior of my giant whale demon clan. The Si sect is a natal spiritual treasure that Si Laozu painstakingly refined. As a descendant of the giant whale demon clan, I am naturally qualified to inherit the Si bell." What? Si Laozu was actually a demon clan cultivator, and a giant whale demon clan cultivator at that? Not only Ao Dian Laozu and Hai Hun Laozu, but even Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping, who had just entered the mountain peak from the stronghold, were also in disbelief. The founder of the Si sect, Laozu, was actually a demon cultivator. Could there be a bigger joke in the North Sea cultivation world than this? Almost everyone's eyes were on Dongi Laozu, who was fighting with Dongi Laozu. Dongi Laozu's face was livid, and the spiritual treasure in his hand was being wielded more and more fiercely, but he did not refute Kong Jing. Hai Hun Laozu hesitated for a moment, but still asked, "Taoist Dongi, is Kong Demon King's words false?" Dongi Laozu's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. He looked at Kong Jing Laozu coldly and said, "My sect's ancestral spiritual treasure is not something you can lay a finger on." Dongi Laozu did not directly answer Hai Hun Laozu's question, but everyone present was smart and had already believed most of Kong Jing Laozu's words. Ao Dian Laozu suddenly turned around and asked, "Kong San, did you also reveal to him about the Si sect's ancestral spiritual treasure?" Kong Jing Laozu denied and said, "Taoist Ao, please be careful with your words. I did not know about the Si sect's ancestral spiritual treasure beforehand." Ao Dian Laozu said angrily, "Bullshit, if you did not deliberately tell your son when he was passing by, how would he know about the ancestral spiritual treasure?" Kong Jing's face changed and he said, "Ao Chuang dared to pry into our clan's secret. Taoist Ao Dian, is this Ao Chuang's idea alone, or the primordial giant crocodile clan's idea?" Ao Dian Laozu was stunned. He did not expect Kong Jing to unintentionally use his words against him. He could only say angrily, "You were the one who did not pay attention to your words, and others heard it. Who can you blame for this?" Demon King Kong Jing snorted coldly and jumped up to ring the Si bell again, but he was held back by Dongi Laozu. Although Demon King Kong Jing's strength was slightly better than Dongi Laozu, there was a limit to his strength. In front of Dongi Laozu's mutually destructive fighting style, his hands and feet were tied. Although the Si bell could not be sounded by anyone other than the Si sect and the giant whale demon clan, it did not mean that the Si bell could not be subdued by outsiders. It was just that the difficulty of subduing it was higher than the difficulty of these two. Tian Kong Laozu was about to enter the battlefield with the mountain-splitting axe in his hand, but Lu Ping unexpectedly grabbed his sleeve and said, "Grand Master, please wait, now is not a good time to intervene." Tian Kong Laozu was a little confused, and said, "If we don't intervene now, I'm afraid the Si bell will be taken by others." Lu Ping gestured towards the group of four and said, "Grand Marshal Uncle, I'm afraid these people already know that you have a second tribulation spirit treasure. In terms of strength, I'm afraid Grand Marshal Uncle is the strongest. However, none of them can do anything to each other. If you intervene now, they will definitely join forces to deal with you first." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Grand Marshal Uncle, I'm afraid these people already know that you have a second tribulation spirit treasure." Tian Kong Laozu pondered for a moment, and suddenly asked with a smile, "Boy, do you have any plans?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Anyway, no one is willing to let Grand Marshal Uncle obtain the ocean bell. It's not only because you're obviously stronger than the others, but also because no one here is willing to see the sect's strength grow any further. If Grand Marshal Uncle forcefully interferes, you'll definitely be surrounded and attacked. So, why don't we go and take the spirit vein first?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "No matter what, no one is willing to let you obtain the ocean bell." Tian Kong Laozu said in a low voice, "It is not just these few people who have entered the sea treasure. The other sects and the demon clan have not shown themselves yet, so it seems that there are even more people who want to take this spirit vein." Lu Ping said in a small voice, "Grand Master, you have forgotten that we have a spy on the inside. Together with Linglong's strength, even if this spirit vein cannot be completely taken by our sect, we can still get a large portion." Tian Kong Laozu slapped his forehead and said, "That's right, that spirit-seeking mouse of yours. Chapter 905. Dongyi Laozu, Kongjing Laozu, Aodian Laozu, and Haihun Laozu, who were in the midst of a chaotic battle, saw that Tiankong Laozu and Lu Ping had only stopped nearby for a short while before leaving. The four of them heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. The power of a second tribulation spiritual treasure was simply too great. Where did Jinling obtain this second tribulation spiritual treasure? It was rumored that Jinling only had 4 spiritual treasures throughout the tens of thousands of years of history. However, among these 4 spiritual treasures, only the one that Tian Xiang Laozu controlled was a second tribulation spiritual treasure. The other 3 were all first tribulation spiritual treasures. Where did the spiritual treasure in Tian Kang's hands come from? Although Kongjing Laozu and Aodian Laozu were plotting against each other just now, at this moment, they looked at each other. The increase in Jinling's power was equivalent to the increase in the power of the human practitioners. The increase in the power of the human practitioners actually meant that the power of the demon clan was relatively weaker. On the other hand, Dongyi Laozu and Haihun Laozu knew that when the various sects of the North Sea were excavating the Ying Tian Temple, Jiang Tianlin had forcibly taken away a spiritual treasure. However, the original form of the spiritual treasure was a wine cup. With one look, they could tell that it was a first tribulation spiritual treasure. It was completely different from the one in Tiankong Laozu's hands. However, didn't this mean that Jinling already had 6 spiritual treasures, and 2 of them were second tribulation spiritual treasures? Dongyi Laozu and Haihun Laozu also looked at each other worriedly. Jinling's increasing power had caused these 2 sects to feel a deep sense of danger. How confident are you? Tiankong Laozu asked Lu Ping as he walked towards the back of the lone peak. In the distance, there were 2 consecutive sounds of the protective barrier being broken. This meant that at least 2 more mid-Dharma adepts had entered the peak. Lu Ping did not directly answer Tiankong Laozu's question. Instead, he said, "There are already people at the source of the spiritual vein. They seem to be setting up a great array to guide the spiritual vein." Tiankong Laozu's heart tightened, and he said, "Leave quickly." Just as they were about to reach the source of the spirit vein, Tiankong Laozu suddenly raised his hand and stopped. Just as Lu Ping was wondering what was going on, a chaotic battle suddenly broke out at the source of the spirit vein. Lu Ping was stunned. His luck was too bad. Could it be that this trip to the vast sea inheritance was going to be fruitless? Angry roars and curses came from afar. Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu were both stunned and thought to themselves, "Feng Shutao is there too." At this moment, the 2 of them moved their divine sense and tacitly hid their auras in a small forest beside them. Immediately after, a beam of light flashed across the sky and descended towards the small forest. It was none other than Feng Shutao. At this moment, Feng Shutao was in an extremely sorry state. Not only was his entire left arm missing, but the merry pestle around him was also moving up and down. It was obvious that the inner yuan in Feng Shutao's body was in turmoil. It seemed that this fellow had suffered at the source of the spirit vein again. Without another word, Tiankong Laozu picked up the mountain-splitting axe and swung it at Feng Shutao. By the time Feng Shutao realized that something was wrong, the mountain-splitting axe had already reverted to its original size of 3 feet in midair. Feng Shutao looked like he had seen a ghost. However, this time was not like the time when he was in the protective barrier. Feng Shutao turned around and ran, but he was hit in the middle of his back by a misty white light. Feng Shutao suddenly realized that the inner yuan in his body had suddenly calmed down. He was a little happy at first, but he realized that the inner yuan had completely calmed down. Even if he wanted to use it, he could not. Feng Shutao panicked and used his cultivation method with all his might. The layer of white light covering his body peeled off like chips. Feng Shutao immediately felt that his body had returned to its original state. However, the inner yuan in his body had suddenly become turbulent again. This was even worse than when his inner yuan had been in a state of turbulence. Puchi! For streams of blood flowed out from his nose and ears, but Feng Shutao did not have the time to care about that. Even though it had only been a split second since he was hit by Lu Ping's white lotus misty light, That split second was enough for the mountain-splitting axe to once again bring Feng Shutao within its attack range. Feng Shidao was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. The wound on his left arm, which had already stopped bleeding, suddenly sprayed out a stream of blood. Feng Shidao looked even weaker and paler than before, but he took advantage of the blood to cast the blood escape secret art. He blocked the mountain-splitting axe for a moment with his staff, allowing Feng Shidao to escape the attack's range. Even so, the light brought about by the mountain-splitting axe had already sliced through the protective aura around Feng Shidao. Feng Shidao spat out a mouthful of blood, and the speed of his blood escape instantly doubled. A moment later, he crashed into the protective wall of the formation. Tian Kong Laozu looked at the protective barrier, which was still shaking but not damaged at all, and said, "So this protective barrier is only meant for people who go up the mountain. If you go down the mountain and go in the opposite direction, it will be fine." No wonder Feng Shutao and Ao Dian were able to join forces to attack us. These two must have secretly worked together to break through the barrier and get ahead of us. Lu Ping could not help but feel a little dejected when he saw that he had not been able to kill Feng Shutao this time. However, Tiankong Laozu laughed and said, "How can a mid-Dharma adept be killed so easily? To be able to severely injure Feng Shutao this time was already beyond my expectations. Previously, when Feng Shutao and Ao Dian joined forces, the one they really wanted to kill was you." Seeing that Lu Ping was deep in thought, Tiankong Laozu continued, "However, Feng Shutao will definitely not have it easy this time. The light from the numinous artifact pierced his body, and it will probably take him at least 10 years to recover. Furthermore, he had one of his arms chopped off earlier. Even if the injuries he suffered are not as severe as the old man's, they have at least damaged his core, which has ruined his last hope of advancing to the late Dharma stage." Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu saw that Feng Shutao had escaped and knew that they would not be able to catch up to him even if they chased after him. Thus, the two of them headed towards the source of the spirit vein. Previously, the two of them had tried to kill Feng Shutao, and it was likely that the people there had heard the commotion. However, they did not know if the two of them would end up like Feng Shutao. "Are you Taoist Tiankong?" A gentle voice came from the source of the spirit vein. Tiankong Laozu was taken aback and said, "Brother Yujin? Why are you here?" As they spoke, Tiankong Laozu and Lu Ping had already arrived at the source of the spirit vein. There were more than 10 practitioners there, and there were humans and demons. There were also 4 Dharma adepts, and one of them was the leader of the Yujin sect, Laozu Yujin Laozu. "Brother Yujin, why didn't you fight for the vast ocean bell, and instead came here?" Songhai Laozu glanced at the 2 demon Dharma adepts at the side. One was at the mid-Dharma stage, while the other was only at the early Dharma stage. Although the entry to the vast ocean treasure this time had stipulated that each clan was only allowed to send 1 mid-Dharma adept and 1 core forging disciple, some clans were obviously not strong enough and could only send out early Dharma adepts. It seemed that this demon practitioner was the demon king of one of the weaker clans. And the other mid-Dharma human adept did not belong to any of the major clans, but was a famous lone practitioner in the North Sea, known as Xiang Lu Laozu. Yujin Laozu laughed and said, "It's a fierce battle there, and I'm not strong enough. Even if I get the vast ocean bell, I'll be a target for everyone, so I don't want to get involved." Besides, even with Brother Tian Kang's power as a second tribulation spirit treasure, he didn't fight for the vast ocean bell, let alone a small clan like the Yujin sect. I might as well come here and get some benefits first. Mara's calamity was growing day by day, and the vast ocean bell was used to ward off Mara's calamity and protect the sect's legacy. But Yujin Laozu had given up on it without hesitation. Even Tiankong Laozu had been persuaded by Lu Ping at that time, and he had only made this decision after much hesitation. Such decisiveness had really impressed Lu Ping. Lu Ping looked down at the ground. The spirit veins were bound by the veins of the earth. Because the lone peak was narrow, the source of the spirit veins was more concentrated, unlike when Lu Ping was at the peak of Failing Mountain, where the spirit veins were unusually scattered. On the ground, there was a huge, unfinished guiding formation, which actually covered more than half of the spirit veins on the peak. Seeing that Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu were looking at the guiding formation, Yujian Laozu smiled and explained, "The spirit vein on this lone peak is indeed a large spirit vein, and this large spirit vein is about the size of 15 medium spirit veins." Previously, Xianling Sect's Feng Shutao arrived first, so he used the formation to encircle 10 medium spirit veins, which happened to be a complete large spirit vein. After that, many Taoists from various sects and demon cultivators arrived one after another. This Feng Shutao was quite an interesting fellow. Relying on the fact that he came first, he refused to let go of the 10 medium spirit veins, and demanded a share of the remaining 5 medium spirit veins. In the end, he incurred the wrath of the crowd, so we had no choice but to work together and expel him. Old ancestor Tian Kong and Lu Ping scolded Feng Shutao in their hearts when they heard that. In front of so many heroes, a person who had lost an arm and his strength was greatly reduced still wanted to take everything for himself. One had to admit that Xianling sect had been arrogant for thousands of years in the North Sea, thinking that everyone should give in to them. Little did they know that Xianling sect was already on the decline, and only Dao Sheng Laozu's name was left to deter the sects in the North Sea. Otherwise, Xianling sect might not even be as strong as Songhai sect. At this time, Xianglo Laozu suddenly said, "Flying Feather sect's fellow Taoist Huayu was also here, but when we surrounded Feng Shutao, he left on his own." Xianglo Laozu's meaning was very clear. He hoped that Junling would not hog all the spirit veins like Xianling sect did. Tian Kong Laozu laughed and said, "Our sect is not as greedy as Xianling sect. We only want 5 of the mid-sized spirit veins." As soon as Tian Kong Laozu finished speaking, the faces of the crowd changed again. However, Junling was not like Xianling sect. That was the true number 1 sect in the North Sea. The mid-Dharma stage demon cultivator was not like the human cultivators. He was the first to jump out and said, "Junling is not a good person either. What right does Junling have to hog a third of the spirit veins in the vast sea treasure?" Tian Kong Laozu's face changed. He said, "Because of this." With that, he swung the mountain-splitting axe in his hand at the mid-Dharma stage demon cultivator. Chapter 906. How powerful was a second disaster spirit treasure? The mid-Dharma demon cultivator in front of him, who also wielded the only first disaster spirit treasure of his race, clearly had a deep understanding of this. With just 3 strikes, he was already at a complete disadvantage, and he could only use all his skills to defend himself. The other early Dharma demon king who had come with this demon cultivator was about to step forward to help, but unexpectedly, a pair of flying swords had already been handed over to Tian Kong Laozu the moment he attacked. Lu Ping had condensed the 6 sets of sword techniques of the North Sea Wave Listening Technique into a brand new magic talisman in the Danxia Purple Aura. In addition, Lu Ping had refined the Thunder Calamity Water to push his level of training to the peak of the core forging stage. His abilities had more than doubled. Otherwise, he would not have been able to kill the early Dharma primordial fierce crocodile with just 1 strike. Lu Ping's earlier surprise attack had given him the upper hand, and he had forced the Demon King to retreat. When the Demon King saw clearly that the person he was fighting was Lu Xianping, who had recently become very famous in the North Sea training world, he was also shocked, and for some reason, he began to panic. It was just that this early Dharma Demon King was obviously not someone that the unintelligent primordial fierce crocodile could compare to. Although this person's race was not considered prominent, and he had entered the Dharma stage later than the Golden Serpent Island Lord, he was still a well-known member of the Demon Clan, and his level of training was not considered weak among the demon cultivators of the same level. After withstanding Lu Ping's storm-like attacks, the Demon King was also embarrassed into anger. Although the person in front of him had a fierce reputation for defeating and even killing Dharma adepts of a higher level, it did not mean that every early Dharma adept could be trampled on by him. The Demon King roared angrily, and with a special magic, he directly hit Lu Ping's beautiful Autumn Dew sword so hard that it almost flew out of his hand. Lu Ping didn't expect the Demon King in front of him to be someone who had mastered the innate great divine ability. He almost failed miserably. Lu Ping's recent challenges against Dharma adepts had been too smooth, so smooth that he had almost forgotten himself. If not for the fact that he had advanced to the pinnacle of the core forging stage, this unknown Dharma Demon King in front of him might have even used his special ability to injure Lu Ping. Lu Ping's divine sense was strong, so he quickly controlled the twin flying swords from afar. Then he unleashed more than 100 sword strikes to nullify the Monster King's innate great skill. However, the Monster King managed to regain the upper hand. Now, both sides were back on the same starting line. Ah! The Monster King roared angrily and a huge seahorse avatar floated in the air, glaring at Lu Ping like a tiger watching its prey. Help me, I agree with what Brother Tian Kong has said. Lu Ping and the Demon King were both stunned. When they turned to look, they saw that the battle between Tian Kong Laozu and the Mid-Dharma Demon King had already ended. From the Demon King's slightly disheveled expression, it was obvious that he had been defeated by Tian Kong Laozu. When the Demon King looked behind Lu Ping, he did not know when the Jade Sword Sect's Jade Sword Laozu was already standing in a position to help Lu Ping. It was obvious that if Lu Ping showed any signs of losing, Jade Sword Laozu would step in to help. The Demon King glared fiercely at Lu Ping, his eyes burning with the desire to fight. However, in the end, he had no choice but to retreat to where the Mid-Dharma Demon King was. Tian Kong Laozu smiled and nodded in the direction of Jade Sword Laozu. Jade Sword Laozu also smiled and walked back to the position he had occupied earlier. Since Brother Ran Liang has no objections, these 5 medium spirit veins will be taken by our sect. Tian Kong Laozu said to Jade Sword Laozu, Brother Jade Sword, how many do you intend to take? Jade Sword Laozu turned and looked into the distance. Another 2 Dharma adepts were rushing over. He understood Tian Kong Laozu's good intentions, so he smiled and said, 2. I only need 2 medium spirit veins. 2 demon kings had yielded. Jade Sword Laozu was obviously in cahoots with Zhenling. The lone practitioner, Laozu Xiang Lu, naturally did not want to offend these 2 sections. Seeing this, he smiled and said, I am just a lone practitioner. I only need 1 medium spirit vein. Even Huayu Laozu, who had returned with Ling Gu Sect's Nanyun Laozu, could only watch unwillingly as Zhenling began to set up the spirit drawing formation, drawing all 5 medium spirit veins into the formation. At this time, another mid-Dharma adept had also rushed over. It was Chong Ming Sect's Santan Laozu. With Jade Sword Laozu and Tian Kong Laozu as support, they also drew 2 medium spirit veins. Just like that, Zhenling's side alone had 9 medium spirit veins. Of the remaining 6, Xiang Lu Laozu had 1, Huayu Laozu had 1, Nanyun Laozu had 1, and the 2 demon kings had 3. As for the core forging adepts, in front of these Dharma adepts, they did not have the slightest bit of weight. They were like children without the support of adults. They could only watch as the other sects divided up the benefits. Tian Kong Laozu looked at Lu Ping. Seeing that Lu Ping had nodded, he then turned to Jade Sword Laozu and Santan Laozu, who had already finished setting up the drawing formation, and said, My 2 friends, please go ahead first. I will activate the formation later. Santan Laozu had a puzzled look on his face, but he heard Jade Sword Laozu say, That's good too. We will first draw this spirit vein away. As the earth shook and the mountains swayed, the 4 medium spirit veins began to move continuously through the earth veins. In an instant, they had already left the spirit vein on the lone peak. However, it was unknown how long it would take for these 4 spirit veins to reach the mountain gates of Yujin Sect and Chongming Sect. And the drawing formation that was set up between the 2 sects would also consume more resources as time passed. Zhenling drew the most spirit veins, so it would take the longest time to activate the drawing formation, not to mention the time it would take for the spirit veins to move in the earth veins. At this time, Xiang Lu Laozu also began to activate the drawing formation. The other sects were also nearing the end of setting up the drawing formation. When old ancestor Tian Kong saw this, he placed the 5 supreme-grade spirit stones in the center of the guiding formation according to the positions of the 5 spirit veins. The entire formation was instantly activated and started to circulate the formation with a commotion that was even more terrifying than when Jade Sword Sect and Chong Ming Sect activated the formation. At this time, the other sects also began to activate their drawing formation. Amidst the loud rumbling sounds, Lu Ping stood there motionlessly. If someone were to pay close attention to his face, they would see that rays of light blue light flashed across his face, and Lu Ping's entire face looked darker and darker. The entire lone peak shook for nearly 10 minutes before it gradually calmed down. Although the entire peak, which was originally full of spirit qi, was still filled with extremely thick spirit qi, this spirit qi was like water without a source, a tree without roots. Without the support of the spirit veins, this spirit qi would eventually dissipate between heaven and earth. Huayu Laozu of the Feiyu sect and Nanyun Laozu of the Lingu sect left in a hurry after the spirit veins were activated. After that, the two demon kings also left quietly. Xiang Lu Laozu, on the other hand, greeted Tian Kong Laozu and the others. Tian Kong Laozu was naturally very polite to Xiang Lu Laozu, a Dharma adept who was born as a rogue practitioner. Only Yujin Laozu and San Tan Laozu were left. The two of them seemed to have something to discuss with Tian Kong Laozu. "Brother Tian Kong, are you not interested in the sea bell?" San Tan Laozu saw that Yujin Laozu had spoken first, so he said directly, "Brother Tian Kong, if the three of us join forces, there is a high possibility that we can compete with the others." Tian Kong Laozu laughed bitterly and said, "This time, I'm afraid I'll have to implicate the two of you." As he said that, he told the two of them about Lu Ping's analysis. He said, "I didn't expect that this time I brought a second tribulation spiritual treasure, but I became the target of everyone." Now, whether it is the Demon Clan or the Blue Sea sect, the other cultivators, they don't want the sea bell to fall into the hands of our sect. If the two of you appear with me, we will definitely face attacks from both the Demon Clan and the Human Clan. Yujin Laozu and San Tan Laozu both felt that it was a pity. However, it seemed that the two of them had not given up and still wanted to try their luck. After bidding farewell to Tian Kong Laozu and San Tan, they headed towards the direction where the battle was going on. After the two of them left, old ancestor Tian Kang's calm and composed expression changed. He hurriedly walked to Lu Ping's side and asked, "How was it? Did something happen to you, brat?" Lu Ping pulled the corner of his mouth and revealed an ugly smile. He said, "Fortunately, I managed to trick these people. Fortunately, I didn't attack the Jade Sword sect and the Chongming sect too severely. Otherwise, I would not have been able to hold on and would have been exposed in front of everyone." Tian Kong Laozu heaved a long sigh of relief and scolded with a smile, "You little brat, don't pretend to be innocent after getting the benefits. In this world of cultivation, how many people can use a spiritual treasure at the core forging stage? And how many people can exert the full power of a spiritual treasure at the core forging stage?" After saying that, Tian Kong Laozu changed his previous scolding expression and asked with a smile, "How was it? How many benefits did you get this time?" Lu Ping swallowed a rejuvenation pill and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that Linglong could be so powerful. There were 3 spiritual veins from the Monster Clan, 1 each from Feiyu and Lingu, and 1 from Xiang Lu Laozu, a rogue cultivator. There were 6 spiritual veins in total, and Linglong intercepted half of them. After all, the Jade Sword sect and the Chongming sect are allies of our sect. So, Linglong showed mercy and only intercepted 1 spiritual vein in total. The rest of the spiritual veins had already been sent to the main drawing formation of our sect when the great drawing formation of our sect was activated." Tian Kong Laozu's eyes lit up. He said, "That is to say, our sect has quietly obtained 9 spiritual veins this time, which is almost equivalent to 1 spiritual vein of a large spiritual vein?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "That is correct. However, it is best for our sect to keep it a secret. We have to say to the outside world that we only obtain 2.5 or 3 spiritual veins, and we have to say this in advance. In any case, our sect is the closest to Universe Island, and we are the first to complete the drawing of the spiritual veins. When the time comes, with our sect's example, even if the other sects only obtained half of the spiritual veins, they will only suspect that it was Zhanghai Laozu who did it, and not us." Chapter 907. Tian Kong Laozu laughed and scolded, "You're really cunning, kid." As soon as Laozu finished speaking, he saw Lu Ping stomp on the ground. After a while, the ground shook, and Debao emerged from the ground. He transformed into a fat young man, and then he handed 4 small spirit-gathering pearls to Lu Ping and said, "A large spirit vein has only given birth to 4 small spirit-gathering pearls after so many years. How poor." Lu Ping weighed the pearls in his hand and smiled at Lao Zu. "Martial uncle, I'll take these pearls." Tian Kong Lao Zu put the 9 medium spirit veins back into the sect, so he naturally didn't care about the small spirit-gathering pearls. However, he didn't agree explicitly, and instead said, "The old man wants to see who the sea bell belongs to. At the very least, it can't fall into the hands of the sea sect." At this moment, Debao suddenly said, "Lao Zu, the spirit veins in the earth veins are starting to weaken, and the mountain guarding formation will collapse soon. At that time, the fight for the sea bell will probably become a chaotic battle between the human and demon races." Tian Kong Lao Zu and Lu Ping hadn't thought of this, and both of them were shocked. Lu Ping asked, "How long do we have?" Rumble. Before Debao could answer, the entire mountain guarding formation started to shake violently, and this was a sign that the formation was starting to collapse. However, although the formation had lost its foundation, it had been embedded in the earth veins for tens of thousands of years. Even without the support of the spirit veins, the process of collapse was still extremely long. Tian Kong Lao Zu took off and said, "The old man wants to go take a look. You leave first." Lu Ping hurriedly said, "Martial uncle, I'd rather let the giant whale demon king get the sea bell than let Dongi Lao Zu or Ao Dian get it." Tian Kong Lao Zu disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one knew if he had heard Lu Ping's words. Following Tian Kong Lao Zu's departure, Lu Ping seemed to feel that the sounds coming from the place where the battle had taken place earlier were getting more intense. Without another word, Lu Ping turned around and left. Although he could sense the situation in the battle with his current divine telekinesis, he did not have Tian Kong Lao Zu's protection at this moment. In the eyes of these Lao Zu, he was basically a delicious cake that everyone wanted a bite of. At this moment, it was more important for him to leave Earth Island first. Debao followed closely behind and said, "Boss, this is for you." Lu Ping took a sealed stone box from Debao's hands. He looked at Debao in confusion and asked, "What is this?" Debao shook his head and said, "I don't know either. I saw this box in the earth veins earlier and wanted to pick it up to take a look. Unexpectedly, I was trapped by the restriction formation deep in the earth veins. If it weren't for Linglong's help and the restriction-breaking talisman that boss left me, I'm afraid I would have died inside today." Lu Ping frowned as he looked at the stone box in front of him. Lu Ping was very familiar with the restriction set up on it, but it was precisely because of this that he could do nothing about it. This restriction could be considered a self-destructing restriction. Only Lu Ping could open it using the correct method. If the method was wrong or if it was forcefully opened, the stone box would inevitably be destroyed along with the item inside. Perhaps it really was a treasure. Lu Ping put away the item, and Debao immediately followed him and said, "Boss, do you think this counts as a meritorious deed? If it weren't for my guidance, Linglong wouldn't have been able to intercept those spirit veins so easily." Lu Ping was too familiar with Debao's skills. He didn't stop walking or raise his head. He directly asked, "What do you want?" Debao stammered, "Boss, why don't you give me the pair of black jade stones first?" Lu Ping heard this and turned to look at Debao in surprise. He said, "What? You want to cultivate? Didn't you just break through to the 3rd layer of the core forging realm? Although Fei Ling Island is rich in spiritual energy, I'm afraid you'll have to accumulate spiritual energy for a few years before you can break through to the middle stage of the core forging realm." Debao immediately fell silent and didn't say anything. Lu Ping took 2 steps and suddenly turned back. "Are you feeling pressured?" Debao scratched his head and said, "Degui broke through to the middle stage of the core forging realm not long after you arrived on Fei Ling Island. Among us, I've been with you the longest, but my cultivation is the lowest. Peach Blossom is also at the 5th layer of the core forging realm, and Lu Xiaohai is at the peak of the 1st layer of the core forging realm. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses me. Although Sister Xylan is also at the 3rd layer, her situation is special." Lu Ping raised his hand to stop Debao from speaking. He said, "I remember you once said that you wanted to leave the high-grade earth-level spiritual energy stone to you. I just don't know if you want to use it to smelt a second or a third spiritual item. Lu Ping paused and didn't wait for Debeo to reply. He continued, if you want to smelt a third spiritual item, then I can give you the obsidian stone now. If you want to try to break through to the transcendent stage, then the obsidian stone is what you need to smelt a second spiritual item to advance to the late stage of the core forging realm. Lu Ping finished speaking and plunged into the protective wall of the array. Although the protective array of the lone peak was showing signs of collapsing, such a huge array must have been set up in a complicated manner. Moreover, the internal structure of such a huge array was intertwined. It was impossible for it to completely collapse in a short period of time. Debeo didn't react to Lu Ping's words for a moment. In Debeo's mind, with his aptitude and condition, he would reach the peak of the core forging realm after advancing to the core forging realm. After that, he would just have to wait for death to come. However, Lu Ping's previous words clearly told Debeo that he even had a chance to advance to the transcendent stage. Debeo's entire body shivered. Seeing that Lu Ping had already crashed into the protective wall of the array, he hurriedly chased after him. He shouted, "Boss, wait for me." Debeo frantically crashed into the protective wall of the array, but he was tightly held by an arm. Lu Ping's voice sounded in his ear, "Shut up. Go underground." Without saying another word, Debeo's entire body suddenly exploded into a yellow fog and shrunk into the ground. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Just as Lu Ping crashed into the protective wall of the array, Lu Ping's divine will seemed to capture the aura of someone. However, this person was unusually cautious. In just a moment, he disappeared from Lu Ping's divine will. At this moment, although the array had not collapsed, it had lost its previous strictness. Many loopholes had been exposed. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Ping's divine will was different from that of ordinary people, perhaps he would not have noticed this little movement. However, it was also because of this fleeting movement that Lu Ping understood that this hidden person was coming for Lu Ping. Who could it be? If it was Lao Zu at the mid-Dharma stage, there was no need at all for him to play this kind of hide-and-seek game with Lu Ping. He could have directly come to take Lu Ping's life. Furthermore, at this time, all the mid-Dharma Lao Zu were probably gathered at the peak of Lone Peak. Regardless of whether or not they had the intention to fight for the Sea Bell, it would be a lifelong regret if they did not participate in such a large-scale Dharma battle with Lao Zu. Therefore, it could only be an early Dharma adept or another enemy core forging adept. However, if it was Lao Zu at the early Dharma stage, even if there were loopholes in the array, he might not have revealed such a big loophole in front of Lu Ping. Therefore, there was only one possibility. Perhaps the hidden person was an enemy core forging adept. If that was the case, the ambush might not have been made by just one person. Lu Ping did not believe that with the strength that he had displayed so far, there would be any core forging adept in the North Sea who would dare to kill him alone. If they came to fight him fair and square, perhaps there would still be someone, such as the burly man behind the giant whale demon king, Kong Jing Lao Zu. Behind the protective array in front of Lu Ping, Ouyang Weijian pursed his lips tightly. "Little Ouyang, are you sure that Lu Xianping will pass by here?" A dark-skinned martial adept played with a pair of iron hammers in his hands as he asked Ouyang Weijian, who was in front of him. Ouyang Weijian nodded reservedly and said, "Of course. Otherwise, why would my teacher and your father have calculated the position of Tiankong Laozu and Lu Xianping before launching a sneak attack? Unfortunately, it was all for naught. You went for wool and came home shorn, didn't you? I heard that your teacher has now retreated with serious injuries, but brother Ouyang still dares to stay on Lone Peak. Such courage is really admirable." A mocking voice came from Ouyang Weijian's right side. Ouyang Weijian looked up and saw that it was Zhou Tong, the disciple of Zhang Shi from the Blue Sea sect. A trace of anger flashed across Ouyang Weijian's face as he said, "Who would have thought that Tiankong Laozu would actually have a second tribulation spirit treasure in his hands? Brother Zhou, don't go too far." Zhou Tong seemed to turn a blind eye to Ouyang Weijian's anger and continued to provoke him. "I heard that brother Ouyang has lost to Lu Xianping several times in the past, but was always able to escape with his life. In the eyes of many North Sea cultivators, I'm afraid this is already quite amazing, right? Ouyang Weijian was furious. A middle-aged cultivator behind Zhou Tong hurriedly said, "You too, right now we should join forces to deal with Lu Xianping. Let's talk about private matters after this matter is over." Zhou Tong smiled and didn't say anything. Ouyang Weijian forcefully suppressed his anger and glanced at the middle-aged cultivator with slight disgust. If the giant whale demon clan's Kong Zhuang hadn't suddenly changed his mind, Ouyang Weijian wouldn't have found this person to make up the numbers. Although this person could be considered as a veteran core forging stage cultivator in the demon clan, and he was a cultivator of the same generation as his teacher Feng Shutao, Ouyang Weijian really didn't trust this person's strength. If it wasn't for his mistake just now, it was very likely that it would have aroused Lu Xuanping's vigilance. Ouyang Weijian knew that Lu Xuanping's divine sense cultivation was extremely high. The four of them occupied the four corners of the array formation space. This way, no matter where Lu Ping rushed in, he would be surrounded by the four of them, and the four of them could then lay down the array formation to kill Lu Xianping. At this moment, if Lu Ping was present, he would be able to recognize at a glance that the dark and strong Kong Zhuang cultivator was the primordial giant crocodile clan cultivator who chased after Lu Ping in the deep sea demon territory. His name was Ao Li, and he was the younger brother of the Golden Dragon Island Lord Ao Chuang. Now his cultivation had also increased to the peak of the core forging stage, and he was only one step away from the Dharma stage. As for the middle-aged cultivator, he was even more familiar to Lu Ping. This person was the demon clan cultivator who set up a formation to surround and kill Chu Xuanqing, and then Lu Ping ruined his plan. Nearly 100 years had passed, and this person had not broken through the Dharma stage, but he was only one step away from the Dharma stage. Chapter 908. Ever since Ouyang Weijian was defeated by Lu Ping in one move on Frost Island, he viewed it as a great humiliation. After the incident on Frost Island, Ouyang Weijian was sent to the Crystal Palace by Xianling sect. In Water Crystal Palace, Ouyang Weijian had to endure the discrimination and supercilious looks from everyone in Water Crystal Palace. There were even times when he had to become a practice target for those direct disciples. Even after being trampled on time and time again, he still had to put on a smiling face to welcome them. For Ouyang Weijian, who was regarded as a genius in Xianling sect, this was worse than death. However, he could only endure it, because Ouyang Weijian, who was regarded as a rising star in the North Sea, couldn't find any sense of superiority among his peers here. In the Crystal Palace, there were plenty of people who had cultivated for roughly the same amount of time as him, but were far more powerful than him. His pride and dignity in the past were completely worthless in front of these people, and could only be used as a topic of conversation for them to despise him even more. But Ouyang Weijian endured it in the end. Over the years in the Crystal Palace, he no longer focused on improving his cultivation. Instead, he began to polish his own foundation. At the same time, he used the cultivation resources in the Crystal Palace to extensively study the specialties of various sections. He gradually began to learn from the strong points of others and compared them with his own natal sword art, the romantic Mary 18 swords, which greatly improved his swordsmanship. As a result of his efforts, Ouyang Weijian was finally able to hold on against the air cultivators of Crystal Palace for a longer period of time. Eventually, he was able to stand on equal footing against them. Rather, he was even able to emerge victorious against cultivators of the same level as him. And the biggest change brought about by the increase in strength was that Ouyang Weijian gradually began to gain the recognition of these arrogant direct disciples. The previous supercilious looks and ridicule had disappeared, and Ouyang Weijian seemed to have once again returned to the ranks of the proud sons of heaven of the past. Over the years, although Ouyang Weijian did not deliberately improve his cultivation level, he had unknowingly raised his cultivation level to the peak of the core forging realm. Compared to his previous cultivation level, which had always been ahead of Lu Ping, Ouyang Weijian's cultivation speed was not as fast as before. However, Ouyang Weijian could feel that his strength had improved with each passing day. This time, Ouyang Weijian could be said to be full of confidence when he returned to the North Sea. He believed that this would definitely be a journey that would allow him to wash away his previous humiliation and make his name known throughout the North Sea. However, after he returned to the North Sea, a bucket of cold water poured over the confidence he had accumulated bit by bit over the years. Lu Xianping had defeated the Dharma adept, Tian Shu Laozu, as a core forging level 9 adept. This was impossible. Ouyang Weijian roared hysterically in his heart. This must be Zhenling's plot, a plot designed to make Lu Xianping famous, and the price was only the sacrifice of an ordinary Dharma adept's reputation. Compared to Zhenling's future, the sacrifice of an ordinary elder was nothing. Tian Shu must have gone easy on Lu Xianping. He desperately needed to verify this news. However, from his own sources, this news was true. Ouyang Weijian was able to persevere under the ridicule of the Crystal Palace adepts. Naturally, he was a person with a strong heart. Although the result of Lu Xianping defeating Dharma adept Laozu was a huge blow to Ouyang Weijian's confidence was not destroyed. He had stayed in the East Sea for decades, and his vision and knowledge were no longer comparable to before. There were many large and medium-sized sects in the Central Plains, or even overseas powerhouses like the Crystal Palace, who were able to cultivate disciples who could go up against ordinary early Dharma adepts, and even win against them. It was not as if they did not exist. But who were these people? They were all 1 in a million geniuses. They had fought their way out of the tens of thousands of adepts in each generation of the Crystal Palace, and they enjoyed the most precious training resources in the Crystal Palace. How could Lu Xianping be compared to these people? Even if Ouyang Weijian had trained in the Crystal Palace for 20 years, the most he could do was to fight a Dharma adept who had just entered the Dharma stage to a stalemate. Of course, this was because he was in a defensive position and was suppressed in all aspects. Although the opponent could not do anything to him at the moment, as time went on, Ouyang Weijian would definitely be defeated by his opponent due to the depletion of his inner yuan. Ouyang Weijian shook his head vigorously, dispelling these distracting thoughts from his mind. At this time, he suddenly thought of something and asked, "How long has it been? Why hasn't Lu Xianping come yet?" Ouyang Weijian's question made everyone's hearts clench. Mo Wei hesitated for a moment and said, "Could it be that Lu Xianping has already discovered the ambush here and has taken a detour elsewhere?" Just as Mo Wei's voice fell, the entire ground suddenly trembled. Even though everyone was a person with profound cultivation, they almost couldn't stand firmly on the ground. "What's going on?" Ouyang Weijian asked in shock. "There's something down there." The one who spoke was Ao Yong. The knuckles of his hands that were gripping the iron hammer were already faintly blue, and it was obvious that he was ready to strike. "Is it Lu Xianping's doing?" Just as Mo Wei finished speaking, Zhou Tong had already brought out his thin water sword. But then there was a scream. Everyone was shocked. When they turned to look, they saw Mo Wei's eyes wide open as he stared at the tip of the sword sticking out of his chest. His eyes were filled with endless fear. He couldn't figure out who the murderer was. Was it Lu Xianping? How did he get behind him, and how did he manage to stab the flying sword into his back so accurately through the protective formation wall? However, he would never have the chance to get the answer to these questions. Zhou Tong, Ouyang Weijian, and Ao Li began to move together, gradually forming a triangle, directly facing Mo Wei's position. Zhou Tong's eyes narrowed as he watched the sword tip suddenly retract from Mo Wei's chest. He exclaimed, "Changlu sword." Mo Wei fell as the sword tip retracted. The power of the protective wall behind him was greatly reduced due to the lack of the support of the spirit vein. The Changlu sword pierced through the protective wall again and began to cut a circle on the protective wall under the different gazes of the 3 people. Then, there was a clang as if the person behind the protective wall had kicked it. The protective wall that was cut by the Changlu sword evaporated into specks of spirit qi and finally dissipated. Lu Ping strode in from behind the protective wall. The Changlu sword circled around him and began to vibrate rapidly. Lu Ping's gaze instantly lit up when he looked at Zhou Tong, and then he turned to look at Ouyang Weijian and Ao Li. He said, "So you're all acquaintances. I wonder how I should address you, fellow Taoist from the Songhai sect." To be able to wield the thin water sword, this person's status in the Songhai sect must not be low. To be able to join forces with Ouyang Weijin and Ao Li, this person's strength must have been acknowledged by the two. You're Lu Xianping? Zhou Tong took a step forward and raised his chin slightly. I'm Zhou Tong. I've long heard that you're known as the #1 cultivator below the Dharma stage in the North Sea. I wonder if you dare to fight the three of us today. Zhou Tong? I've never heard of you, but I've fought with Zhang Shi from your sect before. Zhou Tong's face was choked to death by Lu Ping's words. Who was Zhang Shi? That was his teacher. In Zhou Tong's ears, Lu Ping's meaning was very clear. Even your teacher couldn't do anything to me. Who do you think you are? Lu Ping looked at this person with amusement. I thought you wanted to fight me one-on-one. I didn't think that in the world of cultivation, even a group fight can be so righteous. Zhou Tong's face was already pale with anger. He pointed the thin water sword in his hand and said, You're looking to die. Ouyang Weijin cursed inwardly. Zhou Tong had already charged forward with his sword. Ouyang Weijin and Ao Li had no choice but to attack him. Both of them cursed in their hearts. Where the hell did this kid come from? Was he a hothead? Zhou Tong was not a hothead. When Lu Ping mysteriously killed Mo Wei, he had already sensed that Ouyang Weijin and Ao Li had the intention to retreat. However, Zhou Tong couldn't back down, nor was he willing to back down. When he saw the flowing stream sword in Lu Ping's hand, he was already thinking of a way to tie Ao Li and Ouyang Weijin to his ship. What's more, Zhou Tong had full confidence in his 200 years of hard work. Even if Lu Xianping was really as strong as the legend said, they were not to be trifled with. Even if they were no match for him, they could still retreat unscathed. However, if he did not fight, he would lose the opportunity to obtain the flowing sword. Zhou Tong was truly unwilling. This thin water-flowing sword was not only the sword of Songhai sect's founder, Laozu, but also the key to opening Vast Sea Laozu's cave mansion. Unfortunately, the Vast Sea relic had been taken away by others. If the Azure Sea sect had been able to work together, then even if there were others participating in the Azure Sea relic, the Azure Sea sect would have been able to obtain all the benefits before the other sections. It would not have been like now, where the Azure Sea sect had only obtained 10 to 20% of the relic, and there were quite a few treasures that were accidentally destroyed when they were forcibly breaking through the passport barrier. Songhai sect had the thin water-flowing sword, but this was still the case for the other sects. In addition to the secret technique that could greatly increase the power of the thin water-flowing sword, the thin water-flowing sword hid a secret left by Vast Sea Laozu. But what this secret was, the cultivators of Songhai sect still did not know. They only knew that the thin water-flowing sword was not only the key to opening the Vast Sea relic, but also the key to opening the secret. And this secret was hidden in the Vast Sea relic. The thin water-flowing sword formed a silent sword light and stabbed towards Lu Ping in a very strange way. But halfway through, it was killed by the flowing sword, turning into waves of sword that attacked the thin water-flowing sword. Ouyang Weijin's wind-flowing sword and Mary sword had already been condensed into two great magical powers by him. Indeed, after 3 days of separation, one must look at him in a different light. And when Lu Ping's beautiful autumn dew sword blocked the powerful attack of his two great sword magical powers, he was already sure that Ouyang Weijin had at least condensed a magical power talisman in the core space. However, Ouyang Weijin wasn't the only one among Shibi's trio. Lu Ping's twin flight swords stirred up a monstrous wave that carried an indomitable momentum. With just one strike, Ouyang Weijin's twin flight swords was shattered. At the same time, Lu Ping's right hand pulled and pushed. Layers of water nets extended forward in front of Lu Ping. Before spiritual master Ao Li's pair of iron hammers smashed down, he was trapped in the layers of water nets and could not extricate himself. Chapter 909. When Lu Ping sensed Mo Wei's aura, he had Debao sneak into the ground and then used Ling Long to disturb the earth's veins, causing a strong earthquake nearby. Debao took advantage of the chaos to approach the surface and began to determine their positions. Although this would expose Debao to them, in the face of a sudden earthquake, Ouyang Weijin and the others' first thought was to protect themselves instead of trying to kill the peeping Mo Wei. Although they had thought of using the barrier space of the mountain shielding formation to trap Lu Ping and also calculated the direction Lu Ping would take, they had forgotten that the mountain shielding formation was on the verge of collapse and its defensive power was rapidly weakening. Moreover, the long stream sword in Lu Ping's hand had a natural restraining effect on the mountain shielding formation. Previously, if Lu Ping wanted to pierce through the mountain shielding formation, he would at least need Tiankong Laozu to smash it with his axe first. But now, Lu Ping could directly cut through the shield with the long stream sword. This was also the reason why Lu Ping was able to get behind them in such a short time. Although Zhou Tong had only been in the cultivation world for a short time, it did not mean that he did not know his own limits. Even if Lu Xuanping's defeat of his own sex Laozu was fake, the fact that he had killed the Golden Jiao Island Lord's companion spirit beast in front of so many people could not be faked. Be it Ouyang Weijian or himself, neither of them had the strength to fight Lu Xianping alone. However, Mo Wei had been killed by Lu Ping at the beginning, so the formation that the four of them had prepared could not be used. If they really wanted to fight Lu Xianping to the death, the three of them would have to work together. However, in a situation where both Ouyang Weijian and Ao Li had the intention to retreat, Zhou Tong could only escape with them. Once the three of them split up and Lu Xianping decided to chase after them, the three of them would likely be defeated by him one by one. Zhou Tong brought Ouyang Weijian and Ao Li with him to fight Lu Ping and try to snatch the long stream sword in Lu Ping's hand. However, they all ignored the fact that although Lu Ping was known as the Water Sword Immortal, he was never a pure sword cultivator. Under Lu Ping's moving mountains and filling seas, Ao Li's twin hammers would be inexplicably diverted every time he struck. Or when he struck with his hammers, countless forces would appear from all directions, wearing down the power of his hammers layer by layer. In the end, he had no choice but to withdraw his exhausted hammers. Otherwise, once he was trapped in Lu Ping's Jinyuan net, he might not even be able to protect his magic weapon. Ao Li was at a loss. If he advanced, his attacks would not be able to get close to Lu Ping. If he retreated, Lu Ping's Jinyuan net would wrap around him at any time. When that happened, Ao Li would be at his mercy. He could only bite the bullet and cooperate with Ouyang Weijian and Zhou Tong to attack Lu Xianping. This was not them besieging Lu Xianping. In reality, Lu Xianping alone was entangling the three of them. Although they had already overestimated Lu Xuanping's strength, the truth was that the pride in their hearts made them unwilling to see Lu Xianping as an opponent on a higher level than them. They only subconsciously saw him as an expert on the same level as themselves. The reason was very simple. Only by doing so would they have the courage to continue chasing after Lu Xianping. Otherwise, they would forever lose the qualifications to stand in front of Lu Xianping. Seeing the situation clearly, Ao Li wanted to retreat. But at this moment, there seemed to be a huge flaw on Lu Ping's side. Lu Ping's Sea of 100 Rivers flow sword skill suddenly crumbled, but it wasn't a complete collapse. Instead, it was more like a torrent of water gushing out of the east flowing river sword skill. The autumn waters flowing sword skill swept up a monstrous wave, and with an unstoppable momentum, Lu Ping executed the east-flowing river sword skill to its fullest. When Zhou Tong saw that Lu Ping suddenly shifted the focus of his attack to Ouyang Weijian, he was overjoyed. He did not care about cooperating with Ouyang Weijian and directly rushed forward to snatch the flowing river sword. Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly felt a tug. If Lu Ping had not poured enough true essence into the flowing river sword, then even if he did not seize the flowing river sword, he would have made Lu Ping suffer a loss. The Blue Sea sect really had a secret technique on the flowing river sword. Lu Ping's mind turned, and his divine sense and true essence simultaneously mobilized. Without weakening the power of the Great River Flow's East Sword technique, he began to fight with Zhou Tong for control of the flowing river sword. At this time, Ao Li finally saw a flaw. At this time, Lu Xianping had placed most of his attention on Ouyang Weijian and Zhou Tong. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Ao Li threw the pair of iron hammers up, and the hammers that were originally 1 foot long doubled in size. Ao Li held them tightly in his hands and spun them twice before they flew out. The pair of iron hammers smashed towards Lu Ping with great power. The net of true essence that had formed in front of Lu Ping was instantly torn apart in the face of absolute power. Ao Li was already imagining the scene of Lu Ping's flesh and blood splattering everywhere. He could not help but lick his lips, but then his eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. Boom! Lu Ping's entire body was smashed to pieces, but the scene of flesh and blood splattering everywhere did not appear. Instead, it was as if a torrential rain had fallen from the sky. At the same time, another Lu Ping strangely appeared in front of Zhou Tong. How could this be? At the moment when the iron hammers smashed into Lu Ping's body, Ao Li's divine will could still clearly feel the vitality flowing through Lu Ping's body. How could it have changed so suddenly? Could it be that Lu Xianping had already mastered the space magic before he had even reached the Dharma stage? Thinking of this, Ao Li could not help but feel a thump in his heart. When he turned to look, a shocking scene appeared again. Ouyang Weijian had actually escaped. Yes, he had escaped. When Ouyang Weijian saw Lu Ping suddenly display such a magnificent great magic swordsmanship, he already knew that Lu Ping's target was not him. Naturally, Ouyang Weijian did not have the ability to resist such a great magic swordsmanship, but this did not mean that Ouyang Weijian could not escape or dodge this great magic swordsmanship. In a situation where there were many people attacking, such a large-scale great magic swordsmanship was not worth using. This was because in a situation where the opponent could escape or dodge, the cultivator would only be wasting their true essence and dermic powers in vain. Lu Xianping had been cultivating for more than 100 years and had fought countless battles, big and small. How could he not know this? But he still did it. This meant that Lu Xianping had other intentions. He was creating an opportunity for himself, an opportunity to break out of the situation. But this opportunity was under Lu Ping's great magic swordsmanship, and Ouyang Weijian could not stop it. Was Lu Xianping still invincible? A sense of helplessness swept through Ouyang Weijian. He clearly knew Lu Xuanping's intentions, but he could not stop it. Since he could not stop it, this battle was bound to be lost. Then he had to escape. Fortunately, Lu Xuanping's use of this great magic swordsmanship meant that the person he was plotting against was not him. He could use this opportunity to escape. Otherwise, once Lu Xianping broke out of the situation, the first person he would kill would definitely be him. Ouyang Weijian turned around and fled. This time, he did not even have to deliberately dodge the great river flow's east sword technique behind him. Ao Li was only stunned for a moment. Suddenly, his entire body shivered, and he also turned around and crashed into the protective wall in the other direction. At this time, there was nothing he did not understand. His priority was to save his life. Fortunately, the formation was getting weaker. The protective formation in the sky was already so clear that it was almost transparent. Only a thin layer of membrane was left. Before Ao Li left, he did not forget to turn around and shoot a pitiful glare at Zhou Tong, only to see Lu Xianping suddenly appear in front of Zhou Tong. Under Zhou Tong's horrified expression, a misty white light struck Zhou Tong's body, causing him to be stunned. At this moment, countless streams of sword qi strangely poured into his body like water. Then, Zhou Tong's entire body began to change shape, as if his skin and flesh were being separated. Ao Li was scared out of his wits. There was only one thought left in his mind, and that was to never be Lu Xuanping's enemy again in this life. Lu Ping frowned as he looked at Zhou Tong's dead state. Even he himself took a deep breath. Lu Ping didn't expect that the water seep sword skill could be used in such a way. However, this method was a little too cruel. He didn't expect that he would be able to kill Zhou Tong in such a unique way when he didn't use his flying swords. Lu Ping did not doubt that as long as he made a cut on Zhou Tong's body, he could completely peel off a piece of human skin. Lu Ping shook his hand and shot out a silver flame, turning Zhou Tong's body into flying ash. Only then did he take the ownerless thin water sword. Bluish-purple true essence surged out from his hand and the foreign true essence in the thin water sword was completely expelled. The lingering true essence in the thin water sword was also annihilated by Lu Ping's divine sense. Even if Lu Ping's true essence was vigorous and tyrannical, it was still beyond Lu Ping's ability to refine the thin water sword as smoothly as the Changlu sword in a short period of time. He could only carefully polish it in the future. However, just as Lu Ping began to refine the thin water sword, the Changlu sword unconsciously began to hover around the thin water sword. As Lu Ping completed the initial refinement, not only the Changlu sword, but the thin water sword also began to tremble violently. The two flying swords seemed to be resonating with each other. The clear and melodious sword cry even shattered the large protective array behind Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression changed. He put away the two swords and grabbed Debao from the ground. His feet flashed and he fled towards the periphery. The protective barrier that was originally shattered by the sword cry of the two swords was like a signal. The already precarious mountain protective array on the entire lonely peak instantly began to collapse on a large scale. A ray of light suddenly landed in the area where Lu Ping was previously. Dong Laozu walked out of the ray of light with a cold face. The traces of the fight caused Dong Laozu's expression to change again and again. In the end, he could only fly away with a trace of luck. Chapter 9-10. Lu Ping sprinted all the way down the mountain and recalled the purple crystal bees. He didn't even bother to collect the spiritual herbs on the ground. He exited the mountain ranges formation and fled in a conveyance light. Behind Lu Ping, with the complete collapse of the Lone Peak formation, the entire Lone Peak began to shake. Countless sand and stones fell from the Lone Peak, which then developed into a large-scale collapse of the mountain. In the end, the entire mountain began to collapse. Lu Ping didn't stop at all along the way. The news of Zhou Tong's death hadn't spread yet. If Dong Laozu got the news, he would definitely do everything possible to hunt him down. Now he could only fly all the way back to Tianling Mountain to be the safest. Otherwise, even if he stayed on the island under Jinling's jurisdiction, he might be found by the furious Dong Laozu. However, Lu Ping had to stop after flying for less than 10 miles. But Lu Ping wasn't worried at all. Instead, he was greatly relieved. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu looked at Lu Ping, who stopped in front of him, and asked with a smile, "Kid, you are running away in such a hurry. Is there anyone in the North Sea who dares to hunt you down?" Lu Ping took a deep breath and stepped forward to say respectfully, "Disciple greets Grand Uncle Master." After thinking about it, he bowed to the old man next to him and said, "Junior greets Senior Dao Sheng." Lu Ping didn't know why the two giants of the North Sea would appear here, but there was no doubt that he couldn't be lacking in etiquette. After bowing, Lu Ping said, "Disciple seems to have caused trouble. Grand Uncle Master Tian Kong has other matters to attend to, so Disciple has to return to Tianling Mountain first to seek protection from the sect." Celestial Phenomenon Laozu smiled and said, "It seems that you have caused a lot of trouble in the North Sea." As soon as Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's voice fell, a long roar came from afar with strong anger and murderous intent. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu raised his head and looked in the direction of the roar. He said, "It seems that you have caused a lot of trouble. Taoist Dongyi seems to be very angry. Could it be that you are going to kill Zhang Shi?" Lu Ping was stunned and said, "I know my limits. I can't kill Zhang Shi's disciple. But it seems that Zhang Shi's disciple was killed by me." Ancestor Dong Yi landed heavily on the surface of the sea, his face cold as he stared at Lu Xianping, who was standing in front of Ancestor Tian Xiang. Terrifying killing intent surged from his body. However, in front of these two supreme figures of the North Sea cultivation world, Dong Laozu had no choice but to retract his aura. Lu Ping told Dong Laozu and Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and Dao Sheng Laozu about how Zhou Tong and the other three failed to ambush Lu Ping and how Lu Ping killed two of them instead. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu smiled at Dong Laozu and said, "Taoist Dong, did this grand disciple make any mistakes?" Dong Laozu snorted coldly but didn't say anything. Obviously, he had tacitly agreed that Lu Ping was telling the truth. Seeing that Dong Laozu didn't say anything, Celestial Phenomenon Laozu continued, "Taoist Dong, you came here in such a threatening manner. Is there something important that you want my grand disciple to do?" Dong Laozu snorted, but he didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. He cupped his hands and said, "Taoist Tianxiang, it wasn't easy to raise my grand disciple to die in the hands of your sect's disciple. Don't you have an explanation?" Celestial Phenomenon Laozu asked curiously, "Oh, what explanation does Taoist Dongyi want?" Dongyi Laozu suppressed his anger and said, "Even if my grand disciple plotted against your sect's cultivator first, he still died in the hands of your sect's enlightened Lu Xianping. Death is a big deal. In that case, should enlightened Lu Xianping return our sect's Songhai Laozu's thin water unending sword?" Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and Dao Sheng Laozu looked at Lu Ping in shock. Lu Ping said, "May I ask Senior Dongyi, did your sect bring the thin water unending sword into the Songhai legacy?" Dongyi Laozu's face darkened, but he didn't dare to deny it in front of the two Celestial Phenomenon Laozu. He could only say, "No, but the thin water unending sword belongs to our sect's ancestor, Songhai Laozu. This is a well-known fact in the North Sea cultivation world." Celestial Phenomenon Laozu understood Lu Ping's meaning. He turned to Dongyi Laozu and said, "This is Taoist Dongyi's fault. I've long heard that your sect has found the thin water unending sword, but there has been no news of the flowing sword. This means that the flowing sword doesn't belong to your sect. Since my grand disciple obtained it, it naturally belongs to him. What belongs to Songhai Laozu doesn't also belong to your sect." Dongyi Laozu angrily said, "Songhai Laozu is our sect's ancestor. This is a well-known fact. Our sect has inherited the thin water unending sword for thousands of years. How can you say that the flowing sword doesn't belong to our sect?" Lu Ping argued, "Songhai Laozu is the ancestor of the giant whale demon race, Laozu. According to what Senior Dongyi said, the thin water unending sword should also be an inheritance of the giant whale demon race?" Lu Ping's words were clearly out of the expectations of Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and Dao Sheng Laozu. Both of them looked at Dongyi Laozu with inquisitive eyes. Dongyi Laozu fiercely glared at Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, a voice came from behind him, "Fellow Taoist Dongyi, don't tell me you want to deny it? On the lonely mountain peak, that giant whale demon King Kong Jing was able to ring the Songhai bell. Let me ask you, other than your Songhai sect, who else can ring the Songhai bell without refining it?" Tian Kong Laozu descended from the sky, clasping his hands towards Celestial Phenomenon Laozu and Dao Sheng Laozu. He looked at Dongyi Laozu and said, "Could it be that your Songhai sect has colluded with the giant whale demon race and revealed the Songhai sect's inheritance to them? What nonsense!" Facing Tian Kong Laozu, Dongyi did not feel the pressure that he felt when facing the two great cultivators. He said sternly, "How could my Songhai sect collude with the demon race?" Tian Kong Laozu looked up to the sky and laughed twice in surprise. He said, "That's strange. The monster cultivator Laozu's sect is irreconcilable with the demon race. In that case, the legacy of the founder of the sect, Laozu, should not belong to your Songhai sect. Fellow Taoist Dongyi, please go back." Dongyi Laozu hated Tian Kong Laozu for exposing the Songhai sect's secret, but at this moment he was under the eaves. He could only say in a low voice, "Well, even if the Changlu sword was obtained by your sect's spiritual master Lu Xianping, the thin water sword was obtained by him from a cultivator of our sect. This is not wrong. Please return the thin water sword to the old man." Tian Kong Laozu's face also darkened. He said, "Aha, is it right and proper for your sect's disciple to ambush a cultivator of our sect? If the ambush failed, we would have to exchange the weapon back and wait for your next sneak attack. How can there be such a good thing in the world?" Dongyi Laozu became serious at this time. He turned to Dao Sheng Laozu and said, "Fellow Taoist Dao Sheng, among the cultivators who ambushed Lu Xianping was Ouyang Weijian of your sect. He was the one who told the old man about the matter of our sect's disciple being killed. What do you think?" Dao Sheng Laozu had not said much since he and Tian Xiang Laozu arrived, but Dongyi Laozu's words forced him to express his opinion. He frowned and said, "Fellow Taoist Dongyi, it's better to give this matter further thought." Dongyi Laozu did not expect Dao Sheng Laozu, who was known as the #1 expert in the North Sea cultivation world, to say something like this. After a moment of shock, he laughed angrily and said, "Fellow Taoist Dao Sheng, perhaps you still don't know that your sect's Feng Shu Tao has been injured by Tian Kong. He has no hope of advancing to the late Dharma stage in this life. Now that you know this, I wonder if you will give this matter further thought." Tian Xiang Laozu's face suddenly darkened. Tian Kong Laozu reached out to touch the storage bag at his waist and looked at Dongyi Laozu with a hint of murderous intent. Dao Sheng Laozu was silent for a moment before he suddenly said, "The old man already knew about this matter. This is also one of the reasons why Brother Tian Xiang and the old man came here. Fellow Taoist Dong Yi, if there is nothing else, please go back first." Dongyi Laozu, who had calmed down, finally sensed something from Dao Sheng Laozu's retreat, so he did not say anything and turned to leave. Tian Xiang Laozu looked at Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping, then turned to Tian Kong Laozu and said, "Junior brother, you go back to Tianling Mountain first. The old man and brother Taoist Dao Sheng still have things to discuss." After Tian Kong Laozu had left, Tian Xiang Laozu suddenly said, "Feng Shutao should not join forces with the demons." After a moment, Dao Sheng Laozu said, "Feng Shutao has no hope of advancing, so he has been punished. That's not enough. This cannot be allowed to happen." Dao Sheng Laozu sighed and said, "What is Brother Tian Xiang planning?" Tian Xiang Laozu smirked and said, "With Qiao Feizhou gone, there is one less Dharma plane cultivator among the 12 families of North Sea." Dao Sheng Laozu came to a realization and said, "The spirit stone mine of Frost Island." Tian Xiang Laozu nodded slightly and said, 25 of the share belongs to Zhenling." Dao Sheng Laozu sighed and said, "Good." The two stood there without moving. After a while, it was Dao Sheng Laozu who spoke first and said, "The ocean bell is of great importance. What do you think, Brother Tian Xiang?" Tian Xiang Laozu did not hesitate and said, "Let's recruit them based on our own abilities. As long as it does not affect our plan to fight against Mara, we will not interfere. Otherwise, we will lose the support of the hundreds of thousands of lone cultivators in the North Sea." Dao Sheng Laozu thought for a moment and said, "All right, this person is quite lucky." Tian Xiang Laozu did not comment and said, "Let's go, don't let the two of the demon race wait too long. This universe island collapsed suddenly, and there are many things left inside. Let's let our disciples practice." Lu Ping followed Tian Kong Laozu and flew all the way to a medium-sized island closest to Universe Island under Jinling's jurisdiction. There was a teleportation formation here that led directly to Heaven Spirit Mountain. It was only then that Lu Ping thought of something. He asked, "Martial Granduncle, who obtained the ocean bell?" Tian Kong Laozu looked like he had seen a ghost and said, "Xiang Lu." Lu Ping thought he had heard wrong and said, "How could it be him?" Chapter 9:11. This time, the vast sea relic that caused such a stir in the entire North Sea, the ultimate beneficiary was not the various demon tribes that were well prepared, nor was it the various human sects, but a lone practitioner. Out of all the treasures in the vast sea relic, the one that was truly regarded as the #1 treasure was the vast sea bell that Laozu of the vast sea had used to awe the world. And this vast sea bell had been fought over by the various North Sea forces and Dharma adepts, but in the end, it had fallen into the hands of the lone practitioner, Xiang Lu Laozu. So, in order to prevent Dongyi Laozu from obtaining the vast sea bell, you tried to knock it away. Unexpectedly, the lone peak suddenly began to shake, and the entire formation's speed of collapse accelerated. Due to a moment of carelessness, your hand missed the vast sea bell, which was originally intended for the giant whale demon King Kong Jing, and it fell straight into Xiang Lu Laozu's hands. The mountain-splitting axe was also unable to stop in time, and it killed an early Dharma adept who came forward to join in the fun. And this fallen Laozu seemed to be from the Qiao family that had deep ties with Xianling sect? Looking at Lu Ping's strange and incredulous look, Tian Kong Laozu said, "Don't doubt me, this is what happened." Tian Kong Laozu continued, "Speaking of which, it's strange. If the earthquake hadn't happened so suddenly and violently, the old man's mountain-splitting axe would not have missed." Thinking of this, Tian Kong Laozu seemed to have thought of something and said, "Kid, don't tell me that the earthquake was caused by you. You have the Linglong wine cauldron, a spiritual treasure that can control the direction of the Earth's meridians. Causing an earthquake is not a difficult task." Lu Ping laughed awkwardly and said, "How is that possible? But I feel that, Uncle Master, when you killed Qiao Feizhou with one blow, it seemed like it was intentional." Tian Kong Laozu chuckled and said, "You want to know? First, tell me if you were the one who caused the earthquake." Lu Ping looked behind Tiankong Laozu and said with a smile, "Aya, the teleportation portal has started to activate. Little fox. Old fox." The two of them cursed inwardly, then stepped into the teleportation array. After a flash of white light, the two of them arrived at Heaven's Spirit Mountain. On Heaven's Spirited Mountain, Lu Ping widened his eyes and said, "What? When did the beast race invade Huangli Island? How is Huangli Island now?" "Senior brother Lu, don't worry. Huangli Island is safe and sound." Looking at the furious Lu Ping, Zhang Xuanqing and Deng Jie felt their blood freeze. Only when facing the furious Lu Ping could they, as fellow disciples, directly feel the gap between them and Lu Ping. When Lu Ping heard that Huangli Island was fine, he calmed down a little. But when he saw Zhang Xuanqing and Zhang Xian struggling under his suppression, he calmed down and asked, "Junior Marshal Brother Zhang, what's going on?" It turned out that after the vast sea relics had been forcefully opened, Lu Ping had already followed Tiankong Laozu into the relics. At that time, almost the entire North Sea's attention was drawn to the vast sea relics, and at that time, 3 Dharma adepts from the demon race came together, wanting to seize Huangli Island. The demons' plan was very well thought out. The reason why they had set the rule that only a mid-Dharma adept and a core forging adept could enter the relic was because they knew that Jinling's sect would definitely send someone like Lu Xianping, who was almost invincible among the core forging adepts. Without Lu Xianping, Huangli Island would naturally not be a threat to the Dharma adepts. If the Dharma adepts of the demon race, Laozu, took the opportunity to attack, they would naturally be able to take down Huangli Island easily. Even if Lu Xianping did not enter the vast sea relics, a mid-Dharma adept and 2 early Dharma adepts would be enough to defeat Lu Xianping and take advantage of Jinling's attention being drawn to the vast sea relics to take down Huangli Island. The demon race's information was very accurate. The 3 mid-Dharma adepts of Jinling Laozu had all been sent out, and Laozu, who was a heavenly adept, would definitely be held back by the 2 demon kings because of the vast sea relics. At this time, there were only a few early Dharma adepts guarding Tianling Mountain. Even if these people received the news and came in time, with the 3 mid-Dharma adepts, the 3 demon Laozu could easily defeat them. However, just as the 3 demon Laozu arrived at Huangli Island aggressively, they were blocked by one person. Jiang Tianlin Laozu stood calmly in front of the 3 demon cultivators, but the 3 demon cultivators Laozu's hearts sank all the way to the bottom. When did this Jiang Tianlin pass the thunder trial? Why did they not know anything about it? The 3 demon cultivators Laozu were filled with hatred, but now they had no choice but to face the person in front of them. The demon race's original plan was very good. They wanted to take advantage of the fact that Jinling's mid-Dharma adepts Laozu and heavenly adept Laozu were busy, and then use a mid-Dharma adept to attack and take over Huangli Island. This way, they could use the power of their cultivation to defeat everyone in Jinling. However, no matter how much they thought about it, they did not expect that Jiang Tianlin, who had been staying in Tianling Mountain to prepare for his first thunder trial, had already reached the mid-Dharma stage. Jinling's mid-Dharma adept Laozu might not be able to handle it, but Laozu did not lack early Dharma adepts. Once someone was able to block the demon race's mid-Dharma demon king, then the remaining 2 early Dharma demon kings would not be able to do much. However, just as the 3 demon cultivators thought that there were other Dharma adepts lying in ambush in Jinling, Jiang Tianlin Laozu made the first move. This Jiang Tianlin actually dared to fight against the 3 of them alone. Where did he get such courage from? Just based on the fact that he had just cultivated a Dharma soul to advance to the mid-Dharma stage? The Dharma soul might be of some use before a cultivator advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, as it could give him an advantage over other cultivators of the same stage. However, after advancing to the mid-Dharma stage, the advantages of the Dharma soul would be lost. At this point, Jiang Tianlin would be no different from other mid-Dharma adepts. The 3 demon cultivators Laozu rushed forward together, but the result was depressing. Although Jiang Tianlin had just advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, his level of practice was enough to suppress the mid-Dharma demon king, and he even had the strength to deal with the attacks from the other 2 early Dharma demon kings. For a moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu was still able to hold his own against the 3 of them. As time dragged on, It seemed that Jinling's reinforcements would arrive soon. The three Laozu demon kings began to use their trump cards. Since there was no hope of conquering Huangli Island, as long as they could seriously injure Jiang Tianlin, the top expert among the second-generation disciples of Jinling, it would be a worthwhile trip. However, at this moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu took out a small tree. Strictly speaking, it was a small tree-shaped treasure, and there were 108 green leaves hanging from it. The mid-Dharma demon king gasped. This was not an ordinary treasure, it was obviously a spirit treasure. Since when did Jinling have a spirit treasure like this? Wasn't it said that Jinling only had 4 spirit treasures, and none of them were in Jiang Tianlin's hands? Originally, he could have fought the 3 demon kings to a draw without using a spirit treasure. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu took out the spirit treasure wood and used it with his own spirit treasure, the 3 unprepared demon kings were quickly suppressed by Jiang Tianlin Laozu. This time, they were not evenly matched, but they had the upper hand. Originally, the 3 demon kings thought that they could escape unscathed. Unexpectedly, there was a peak core forging adept hiding nearby with an extremely high level of concealment. Although the 2 mid-Dharma Laozu demon kings had noticed, they did not pay much attention. The 2 early Dharma demon kings did not notice anything at all. Who would have thought that in the end, this hidden cultivator would suddenly make a move after Patriarch Jiang Tianlin had the upper hand? He actually managed to seriously injure one of the early Dharma stage demon kings when they were caught off guard. This was beyond the expectations of all the Dharma adepts, including Jiang Tianlin Laozu demon kings. The situation on the battlefield changed once again. With 6th Brother Lei's sudden attack and restraint, Jiang Tianlin Laozu demon kings had complete control of the situation. In the end, the other early Dharma demon king was also injured by Laozu Jiang Tianlin's fallen petals, and his vitality was taken away for tens of years. The mid-Dharma demon king took the opportunity to escape from Laozu Jiang Tianlin's control and rescued the 2 injured early Dharma demon kings. The demon clan's attack on Huangli Island had failed once again. However, the impact of the battle on Huangli Island on the entire North Sea was even greater than the vast sea treasure. This was mainly because of 3 things that had happened during the battle. The first was naturally the outcome of the battle. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had successfully advanced to the mid-Dharma stage and had a first calamity spirit treasure. He had battled against the demon kings of the demon clan and was not at a disadvantage even though he had fought 1 against 3. This had a huge impact on the entire North Sea. The number of Dharma adepts in Jinling had already caused the entire North Sea to look askance. Jiang Tianlin Laozu Jiang Tianlin's powerful strength after advancing to the mid-Dharma stage had caused a huge impact on the entire North Sea training world. Then, there was the appearance of that spirit treasure. In addition to the wine cup-shaped auxiliary spirit treasure that Jiang Tianlin had previously obtained in the Yingtian dojo, as well as Patriarch Tiankong's invincibility in the vast sea relics with a second tribulation spirit treasure, Zhenling's sect now had at least 7 spirit treasures in front of the cultivation world of the North Sea, 2 of which were second tribulation spirit treasures. However, who knew if there would be an 8th spirit treasure appearing in Zhenling? The second matter was the peak core forging adept, 6th Brother Lei, who had taken the opportunity to injure an early Dharma adept of the demon clan. Information about this person was quickly gathered by the various sects in the North Sea. They only knew that this person was not a Jinling adept but had been appearing in Huangli Island for the past 20 years. He seemed to have a close relationship with the owner of Huangli Island, Lu Xianping. However, the thing that made the entire North Sea training world shudder was the fallen petals profundity that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had used to injure the early Dharma adept. After Jiang Tianlin Laozu Jiang Tianlin had advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, he had also successfully elevated his natural grade ability to the supreme level. This was also the first time in 100 years that a supreme ability had been used in a battle in the North Sea training world. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that the fallen petal's profundity contained a nature-defying effect, and that was to deprive one's life force. 108 green leaves, each representing 1 year of life force. Perhaps the combined attack of 108 natal magic treasures would not be able to kill the opponent, but it would be able to rob a cultivator of his life force for 108 years. The early Dharma adept Demon King had been hit by Jiang Tianlin Laozu's 36 emerald green leaves. Even after recovering from his injuries, his lifespan would be shortened by 36 years. Chapter 9:12. After Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island, he learned about the details from Hu Lili. His teacher, Lu Tianling, had already sent someone over to find out more about Lei Laoyo's background. A cultivator who was at the peak of the core forging stage and could even fight against an early Dharma Demon King had suddenly appeared in front of everyone in Jinling. Not only would the sect pay special attention to him, but even Jiang Tianlin Laozu had personally come to ask about Lei Laoyo's background. Lu Ping had no choice but to tell Jiang Tianlin Laozu about the process of subduing Lei Laolu. After hearing that Lei Laolu had actually been placed under the soul-controlling restriction by Lu Ping, the way he looked at Lu Ping changed. For someone like Lei Laolu, not just in Jinling, but even in the 5 holy lands of Middle-earth and the East Sea Crystal sect, he was like a direct disciple. Even in the North Sea, perhaps only Ouyang Weijian could compare to him. However, this person, who would be nurtured as a treasure in any sect, had been used by Lu Ping to guard his home with the soul-controlling restriction. Not to mention Jiang Tianlin Laozu, even if Tianxiang Laozu was here, he would not feel the same way. After sending off Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Lu Ping gave Hu Lili the 4 spirit gathering pearls that he had obtained from the vast sea relic, then went into the secret room. After spending nearly a month, Lu Ping had finally refined the thin water sword to the point where it was like the flowing water sword. Just as Lu Ping finished refining the thin water sword, the flowing water sword combined and swam around Lu Ping's body like a pair of fish. The cheerful sound of the sword echoed throughout the secret room. Lu Ping's divine will captured something as the flying swords circled around him. As the 2 swords trembled, Lu Ping's divine will seemed to sense that something had broken. He hurriedly probed into the swords and found that a layer of previously undetectable restriction runes was undergoing a rapid transformation. Lu Ping did not know the depth of it, but thinking back to when Dongyi Laozu had repeatedly asked for the thin water sword, there must be some secret hidden within the flying swords. At this moment, the transformation of the hidden restriction runes was completed. Lu Ping's inner yuan and divine will instantly refine the newly formed restriction runes. Lu Ping's expression suddenly changed to one of joy. What a brilliant restriction technique! It was actually able to hide a treasure restriction in such a mysterious and ingenious manner. When the 2 swords of the thin water unending flow sword were separated, the treasure restriction that was connected to each other was hidden in the runes of the other treasure restriction. If one wasn't a tool refining grandmaster, it would be very difficult for them to detect the difference. At this time, whether it was the thin water sword or the flowing water sword, on their own, they just looked like spirit-nurturing magic treasures that had condensed 8 restrictions. Once the 2 swords combined and the hidden restriction runes were activated, the flying sword's 9th restriction runes would automatically form and become a top spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Lu Ping's divine will could clearly sense the extremely strong spirituality hidden within the 2 flying swords. This was the characteristic of a magic treasure that had reached the peak of the spirit-nurturing level. It only needed to pass the lightning tribulation and condense pure yang qi to become a spirit treasure. The beautiful autumn water sword in Lu Ping's hands could also be considered a rather good pair of flying swords. However, compared to the thin water sword that belonged to Shanghai Laozu, the gap was really not easy to make up for. Lu Ping looked at the pair of flying swords with a joyful expression. With this pair of flying swords, Lu Ping's strength would be greatly improved. However, this pair of flying swords would also cause a lot of trouble. At least, the Shanghai sect would look for any opportunity to take back this pair of swords that belonged to the founder of their sect, including killing Lu Ping. However, after being warned by Celestial Phenomenon Laozu, the Shanghai sect would at least not make a move on him for a short period of time. However, Lu Ping did not dare to be careless. After killing Zhou Tong and snatching the thin water sword, the hatred between Lu Ping and the Shanghai sect could no longer be resolved. The only thing that eased was the mutual scruples between the 2 sections. After all, the situation in the North Sea was becoming increasingly serious. If the two sects fought, regardless of victory or defeat, the strength of the human race would be weakened. Lu Ping's heart moved and he took out the stone box that Debao found in the depths of the lonely peak. Lu Ping carefully injected qi into the stone box, and the mysterious runes on the surface of the stone box suddenly lit up. At this time, the thin water longsword around Lu Ping also seemed to resonate with the stone box. The sword body tilted and the sword tip pointed towards the stone box. Lu Ping thought to himself that this thin water longsword was not only the key to opening the Songhai sect's treasure, but it was also the key to opening the mysterious stone box. Lu Ping's heart moved, and two sword lights were fired from the pair of flying swords, directly shooting towards the surface of the stone box. The scene of stone chips bursting out did not appear as he imagined. The flashing runes on the surface of the stone box suddenly lit up. When the two sword lights hit the stone box, they completely submerged into the runes. Then the runes on the entire surface of the stone box began to flow. The speed of the flow was so fast that even Lu Ping's spiritual force could not capture it. At this moment, he heard a kachish sound, and a fine crack appeared in the middle of the stone box. Lu Ping was overjoyed and slowly opened the stone box. A purple jade slip lay in the middle of the stone box. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows and held the jade slip in his hand. His spiritual force quickly entered it and began to read the contents. As he read it, a few days passed. It was not that the contents were complicated, but that the jade slip recorded a set of supreme sword technique inheritance of Songhai Laozu. Lu Ping was momentarily fascinated by it and began to figure out and cultivate it on the spot. Therefore, it was delayed for a few days. However, although this sword technique inheritance was precious, what Lu Ping valued more was what was recorded at the end of the jade slip. After Lu Ping came out of seclusion, the first news he heard was that there were problems with the spirit veins drawn from the various sects of the North Sea and the demon race's vast sea heritage. First, Zhenling, who was closer to Huanyu Island, claimed that out of the 5 medium-sized spirit veins that Tian Kong Laozu had drawn from the Lone Peak, only 3 ended up in Zhenling's main spirit veins. Back then, Tian Kong Laozu had forcefully snatched away 5 medium-sized spirit veins from the Lone Peak. At that time, he had offended many people. Therefore, after hearing this news, many people from the various sects of the North Sea and even the demon race clapped their hands and secretly mocked Zhenling for getting what he deserved. However, not long after, news came from Feiyu and Lingu sects that only half of the spirit veins they had drawn from the Lone Peak ended up in their sections. At this time, the North Sea cultivators began to realize that there seemed to be a problem. Sure enough, Yujin sect and Chongming sect both claimed that the spirit veins they had drawn were severely depleted. Out of the 2 medium-sized spirit veins, only 1.5 were in their hands. Even Xiang Lu Laozu, who had obtained the vast sea bell and had been hiding until now, released the news that he had only obtained half a medium-sized spirit vein. This time, other than Xianling sect, the other sects were no longer gloating. Due to Feng Shutao's foolish actions, Xianling sect's losses in the vast sea heritage almost outweighed their gains. When the entire Xianling sect received the news of the severe depletion of the spirit veins, they naturally cheered loudly. It was just that these cheers made people feel sour. Lu Ping smiled. If the various sects knew that the strange depletion of the spirit veins was actually caused by Lu Ping, who knew how many sects would come knocking on his door? However, 9 medium-sized spirit veins were almost equivalent to the replenishment of a large spirit vein. To the entire Zhenling sect, this was undoubtedly a great boost. Soon after, Lu Ping received news from Hu Lili that Huanyu Island had become a trial ground for the blood condensation disciples of the various sections. Thinking of the broken formations, restrictions, and protective walls that covered the entire Huanyu Island after the collapse of the Lone Peak, as well as the large amount of spirit herbs and materials that had yet to be collected, and even the treasures and instruments that were discarded on the island, Lu Ping thought to himself that no wonder. It must be the idea of the 2 great cultivators, Tian Xiang Laozu and Dao Sheng Laozu that day. Otherwise, the sects wouldn't be so cautious in following this rule. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "It just so happens that I have a few things that I need to do after I return to Huanyu Island. However, I can't go now, so I'll send a few disciples over." Who? Lily said in surprise. Didn't you just come out from there? Did you leave some treasures inside? Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, You can say that. I didn't expect those things to be so important at that time. I hope it's not too late and that the trial disciples of the various sects haven't gotten to them before me. Lu Ping summoned the Fong siblings and Tsing Wu. The three of them were already at the peak of the blood condensation realm and were only one step away from advancing to the core forging realm. He told the three what he wanted to find one by one, then sent them to Huanyu Island to train on their own. At the same time, he told them not to reveal the purpose of this trip. If anyone asked, they should just say that they were going out to train. After thinking for a moment, Lu Ping gave them a few single-colored and two-colored restriction breaking talismans and instructed them not to reveal these talismans in front of others. Then, he told them to find Debeo and get a few suitable instruments to protect themselves. After sending the three of them off, Lu Ping thought for a moment and sent out a sound transmission sword. The next day, Du Jialua arrived at Huangli Island from Tianling Mountain. Ever since Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island, Du Jialua had come to visit Lu Ping several times. However, he didn't run into him even once. What he didn't know was that Lu Ping had already seen him in the Baiyang Tower. Disciple greets Uncle Master. Although Du Jialua was almost certain to become Lu Ping's disciple, Lu Ping had instructed him that he would only accept Du Jialua as a disciple after he had advanced to the core forging stage. Furthermore, Du Jialua was not allowed to reveal his relationship with Lu Ping. Thus, even though Du Jialua was already at the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm and was about to advance to the peak of the blood condensation realm, and his earth-based techniques were quite famous among the 4th-generation disciples, he still didn't formally acknowledge a master. He only trained with perfected master Lu Xianyuan. Lu Ping passed a jade scroll to Du Jialua. After thinking for a moment, he tossed a jade token to Du Jialua and said, Go to Huanyu Island and find what's recorded on this jade token. After that, go to the crafting hall and look for Grandmaster Chen Lian. Give this jade token to him and he will know what to do. Du Jialua took the token and was about to leave when Lu Ping called him back and handed him an escape talisman weapon. I've already filled this talisman weapon with inner yuan. When you're in danger, just activate it and cultivators below the Dharma manifestation stage won't be able to do anything to you. Use it well. Chapter 9:13. After Xiang Lu Laozu obtained the vast ocean bell, he hid his tracks and did not appear in the North Sea cultivation world. The sects Laozu all extended an olive branch to the independent mid-Dharma Laozu of the North Sea in view of the destructive power of the vast ocean bell against Mara. However, there was no response. At one point, Lu Ping wanted to use Ling Long to find the approximate location of Xiang Lu's old feet through the traces left in the earth veins by forefather Xiang Lu. But unfortunately, the mountain collapsed and the earth veins shifted. The entire Huanyu Island was in ruins, so even Ling Long herself couldn't find it. Seeing that the situation on Frost Island was becoming more and more tense, the sects all sent out messages, hoping that Xiang Lu Laozu would help the human cultivators defend against Mara's attack. When the news came, the entire North Sea cultivation world noticed the subtle changes. It seemed that if this Xiang Lu Laozu did not appear, not only would he offend the sects of the North Sea, he would also be placed on the opposite side by the entire North Sea cultivation world. After all, the calamity of Mara would sweep through the entire cultivation world. Every cultivator had the duty to fight against Mara. However, if Xiang Lu Laozu appeared, then it would be hard to say if he could continue to control the vast ocean bell under the pressure of the sections. Recently, another piece of news spread like wildfire. That was the Qiao family, one of the 12 families of the North Sea that had Dharma Laozu as their leader. Laozu was mistakenly killed by Tiankong Laozu during the battle for the vast ocean treasure. Without Dharma Laozu, the Qiao family was in a constant state of anxiety. There was news that Zhenling and Xianling sect would work together to divide the Qiao family's share of spirit stones on Frost Island. However, neither Zhenling nor Xianling sect's Dharma Laozu directly responded to this matter. It was as if the two sects did not know about this. However, this also made the other 11 forces feel relieved. They were afraid that the sects of the North Sea would plot against them for their share of spirit stones. These clans usually only had 1 or 2 Dharma adepts in their ranks. There was no way they could compete with the 9 great sects of the North Sea, which had at least a mid-Dharma adept in their ranks, like Laozu. Right now, the situation on Frost Island was growing more and more severe. It was obvious that even Mara had been attracted by the spirit stone mines on Frost Island. At that time, all the sects and families would definitely send out their elites to protect Frost Island. If the sects took the opportunity to plot against the Dharma idol Laozu of these families and forces, they would not be a match for him. Therefore, these 11 sects became more and more united. Fortunately, although there were rumors, the major sects never took any action against the Qiao family's share of spirit stones. This made the previous worries of the 11 forces gradually relax. The scale of Mara's attacks on Frost Island grew larger and more frequent. The entire North Sea was mobilizing their forces. Frost Island could be said to be the most important object in the entire North Sea cultivation world. It was also the first large-scale battle between the North Sea cultivation world and Mara. Zhenling was also constantly making preparations. Naturally, Lu Ping was also called up. However, before he went to Frost Island, Fornax Laozu had already sent him a message, asking him to make a few batches of soul return pills. The soul return pill was a strange pill recipe that Lu Ping found in the Clear Stream cave abode. It could repair a cultivator's damaged divine consciousness. It was targeted at cultivators who had been seriously injured by the soul-devouring magic of the demonic cultivator. The main material to make the soul return pill was the soul-devouring crystal of the demonic cultivator. The grade of the soul return pill depended on the grade of the soul-devouring crystal of the great demonic cultivator. The soul return pill made from the soul-devouring crystal of the great demonic cultivator could heal cultivators who had been injured by the great demonic cultivator's soul-devouring crystal. The soul return pill made from the soul-devouring crystal of the blood demonic cultivator could also heal cultivators who had been injured by the blood demonic cultivator. By the time Lu Ping and Fornax Laozu had finished making a few batches of soul return pills, the battle on Frost Island was already in full swing. Both sides had suffered heavy casualties. On Zhenling's side, even though spiritual master Xianxian was personally in charge of the mother-child traction formation, it was said that the number of core forging cultivators who had died during this period of time was in the double digits, not to mention the other sections. However, this was also because Zhenling occupied the largest area on Frost Island, so the area he was defending was naturally the largest. Even though Zhenling's current strength could be said to be the best in the cultivation world of the North Sea, he could only fight head-on like this. As time went on, the number of casualties would naturally increase. Other than those who had died, there were even more people who were injured. Fortunately, the entire pill pavilion was operating at full capacity during this period of time. With Lu Ping's help, Zhenling's various healing pills were considered sufficient, reducing many of Zhenling's losses. On this day, Lu Ping finally completed the mission that Fornax Laozu had given him. Thinking that he was going to Frost Island soon, he walked towards the artifact forging hall. After guiding the 9 mid-sized spirit veins over and merging them into the main vein of the spirit vein on Tianling Mountain, the concentration of spirit energy on the entire Tianling Mountain had obviously increased. Although Zhenling had tried his best to slow down this process to avoid arousing too many people's suspicions, for someone like Lu Ping who had extremely long divine senses and was extremely sensitive to spirit energy, it was extremely clear. Chen Lian saw Lu Ping from afar and waved at him, saying, "You're here at just the right time. Saves me the trouble of looking for you." Lu Ping smiled. "Not bad, you've already advanced to the late stage of the core forging realm. It looks like becoming a Grandmaster Artificer won't be a problem." Chen Lian threw a psychic jade pendant to him and said, "Here, this is your jade pendant. I've already condensed 2 psychic spirit treasures on it, and it's almost reached the limit of this psychic jade pendant's quality. If you want to improve it further, I'm afraid you'll have to find better spirit materials." Lu Ping held the jade pendant in his hand and played with it. After hanging it on his waist, he could see through the 3 pure true pupils that the psychic jade pendant was filled with a misty light. Lu Ping took off the jade pendant again and said, "This jade pendant was given to me as a greeting gift by my senior sister when I became my disciple. Originally, I only wanted to refine a top-grade magic tool, but I happened to find some suitable spirit materials, so I upgraded it all the way until now." Chen Lian said, "Although this psychic jade pendant can be considered a rare and precious treasure, it has innate limitations. The amount of spirit energy it can gather is almost a hair from 9 oxen for you and me. For early-stage core forging realm cultivators, it has some use. However, if you can find 10 millennia spirit jade, you may be able to upgrade it to the level of a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. In that case, it may be of some use to cultivators like me. Moreover, after using the 10 millennia spirit jade to upgrade its quality, it may have the qualifications to challenge the Thunder Tribulation and become a spirit treasure in the future. How can 10 millennia spirit jade be so easy to find? That thing is not inferior to a high-grade heaven-ranked spirit treasure. With a piece of 10 millennia spirit jade, you can directly refine a spirit treasure. Why would you use it to upgrade this psychic jade pendant?" Lu Ping also had Linglong's wine cauldron in his hand. These things that were precious to others naturally didn't catch his eye. Under Chen Lian's surprised gaze, Lu Ping threw the jade pendant back to him and said, "You're right. This psychic jade pendant was originally not upgraded for me. In a few days, there might be a boy who will bring my jade pendant to you. At that time, you can give this jade pendant to him." Chen Lian said with a smile, "Oh, for it to be so important to you, could it be that you want to accept another disciple? But this jade pendant is just right for me." Lu Ping just nodded and didn't say anything. Instead, he handed a jade slip to Chen Lian and said, "Take a look at this first." Chen Lian took the jade slip doubtfully and checked its contents with his divine thoughts. After a while, he frowned and said, "Why do you want to refine this thing?" Back then, there were many people who wanted to refine this thing, but no one succeeded. Lu Ping asked straightforwardly, "Can you forge it?" Chen Lian pondered for a moment and said, "The refinement process of the vast ocean bell has almost been figured out by the cultivators back then. Naturally, it can be refined. However, after the refinement, it still doesn't have the special killing effect of the real vast ocean bell against demonic cultivators." Lu Ping asked seriously, "Have you really studied the sea bell thoroughly?" Of course. Under Lu Ping's gaze, Chen Lian put away his confident expression and said, "After all, besides Songhai Laozu and now Xiang Lu Laozu, no one has personally touched this treasure." Lu Ping snorted and said, "Even if they touch the real thing, they might not be able to refine it." Chen Lian's eyes lit up and said, "Did you find something?" Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "It's hard to say. Other than the kid who came to you with the jade token, there should be 3 more disciples coming to you. They will bring some spirit material ores with them. You can give them some rewards and then refine the spirit material ores and hand them over to me. Then, we'll try to refine the spirit material ores together. What if we succeed?" Chen Lian was obviously not very interested in the sea bell. Maybe it was because he didn't think he could successfully refine it. But after hearing Lu Ping mention refining spiritual material raw ores, he suddenly remembered something and said, "Speaking of refining raw ores, it reminds me that you have an extremely brilliant purification technique. Coincidentally, all the spiritual materials needed to upgrade your landslide have been prepared. All you need is to upgrade the quality of the magic treasure and condense the spirit-nurturing magic treasure. This is my first time trying to condense the spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Your purification technique will be very useful in upgrading landslide to a spirit-nurturing magic treasure." Lu Ping smiled and said, "You are grabbing a strong man. I still have a mission from the sect." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Isn't it just the matter of Frost Island? The sky is dark and the earth is dark. So many Dharma idol Laozu are biding their time there. Can one more person like you turn the situation around and return victorious? My matter is much more important than you going to Frost Island." Lu Ping thought about it and agreed. If Chen Lian could successfully upgrade this time, he would be Jinling's second Grandmaster Artificer after Tianjiang Laozu. The significance of this wasn't any less than that of a Grandmaster Alchemist in the Pill Pavilion. The sect had no reason to stop him. 3 months later, a dull bang came from the artifact forging hall. The ground shook violently and the entire artifact forging hall started to shake as if the entire artifact forging hall was about to collapse. Many alchemists ran out of the artifact forging hall and saw Tianjiang Laozu standing at the door of an artifact forging room in the distance. Just when everyone was confused, the door of the artifact forging room suddenly opened. A haggard-looking Lu Ping and a dirty-looking Chen Lian walked out one after another. However, they didn't hide the joy in their eyes. Chapter 9:14. The reason why Chen Lian could become one of the top genius artifact refiners in Jinling's artifact forging hall was not only due to his extraordinary talent in artifact forging and his family's heritage. Another important reason was that, compared to other artifact refiners, Chen Lian had many more items to practice with. Back then, Lu Ping had discovered a zong or mine within the green sea snake's lair. Chen Lian had dug out the entire zong or mine and refined it into the spiritual material, zong or bit by bit. It was due to the several years of continuous refining that Chen Lian was able to lay down an extremely solid foundation in the path of artifact forging. After that, Chen Lian entered the artifact forging hall and was accepted as Sage Enigma Flame's disciple. By then, Lu Ping had already begun to manage Huangli Island. The cultivators who had returned from exploring overseas would bring various spiritual materials to Huangli Island to trade. There was no lack of high-quality items among them. Whenever Chen Lian needed those items, Lu Ping and Hu Lili would do everything in their power to obtain them for him. As the other artifact refiners were still hesitating about whether or not they should refine out a high-difficulty magic artifact, Chen Lian had already begun. As the other cultivators were regretting the loss of a great deal of spiritual materials due to a failure in the refinement of a magic treasure, Chen Lian had already destroyed 2 magic treasures. Additionally, he was in the process of refining a third. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the reason why Chen Lian's artifact forging skills could improve so quickly was partly due to his talent and partly due to the sufficient supply of spiritual materials. Outside the artifact forging hall, when Tianjiang Laozu saw the 2 of them coming out, he quickly stepped forward and said, "Take it out. Let the old man have a look." Chen Lian turned to look at Lu Ping. Seeing the anxious look on Tianjiang Laozu's face, Lu Ping hastily brought out Landslide. At that moment, the silvery jade-colored print appeared even more solemn and quaint. The pair of ancient characters engraved at the bottom of the print exuded an immeasurable weight. The entire print appeared seamless. From afar, it looked as though a primordial beast was glaring at them. Good. Tianjiang Laozu looked at the spirit-nurturing magic treasure and said goods 3 times in a row. Then, he turned to Chen Lian and asked, "Did you really condense the seals on it yourself?" Chen Lian was still a little reserved in front of his grand teacher, but Lu Ping wasn't so polite. He smiled and said, "Martial granduncle, even if you ask me to condense a treasure, I don't know how to do it myself." The Sky River Patriarch nodded at Chen Lian and smiled. "Not bad, I have a successor." But when Sky River Ancestor returned Landslide to Lu Ping, he suddenly asked, "The purification technique used to upgrade this mystic treasure is yours, right?" Lu Ping was stunned for a moment, but he knew that the old ancestor's eyes were sharp. He smiled and said, "That's right, it's a purification technique I learned before, but I used it on alchemy. This purification technique is extremely brilliant." Tianjiang Laozu took out a storage pouch and the water-controlling flag. It's not easy to repair the water-controlling flag. The difficulty lies in the fact that the water-controlling flag was created with the intention of being a spirit treasure. Therefore, its materials are extremely rare and hard to find. But that's no longer a problem. The storage pouch contains the materials needed to repair it. The biggest problem is that there is a secret technique used in the refining process of the water control flag, which can make the composition of the spiritual materials extremely pure. With the current means of the old man, it is not impossible to make it, but it will take too much time and energy. Now that you have this set of purification secret technique in your hand, cooperate with him again to repair the water control flag. After that, he turned around and left. Lu Ping looked at his back and suddenly noticed that Tianjiang Patriarch seemed to have relaxed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. However, the Patriarch seemed to have aged even more, and his back view looked unusually bleak. Seeing that the Tianjiang Patriarch had gone far away, Chen Lian suddenly said, "The Tianjiang Patriarch once told me that he only had 2 wishes. The first was to refine a spirit treasure for the sect to pass on to the younger generation. The second was to nurture a weapon refining grandmaster to inherit the legacy of the weapon refining hall." Lu Ping laughed. Although Ancestor Tianjiang didn't personally refine a spirit treasure, both the mountain-splitting axe and the wood in Uncle Jiang Tianlin's hands were repaired and modified by Ancestor Tianjiang. This can be considered as fulfilling one of his long-cherished wishes. Now that you were able to condense the 7th restriction on the landslide, even though you borrowed my strength, you can barely be considered a master refiner. Ancestor Tianjiang's 2 wishes have been fulfilled. He should be happy for the rest of his life. Chen Lian nodded, yet his expression didn't turn for the better in the slightest. Instead, he seemed to be even more serious as he said, "Do you know why Ancestor Tianjiang risked his life to repair the mountain-splitting axe and called me over to assist him?" Without waiting for Lu Ping to answer, Chen Lian continued, "It's not only because of his obsession and his long-cherished wish for the path of refining, but also because his lifespan is running out." Looking at Lu Ping's shocked expression, Chen Lian continued, "In fact, Grandmaster Ancestor didn't even need my help to repair the mountain-splitting axe. These few years, Grandmaster Ancestor only wanted to pass on his knowledge to me. He hoped that I could become a Grandmaster Artificer in his lifetime so that when his lifespan comes to an end, there would be someone to inherit the Pavilion of Smithing's legacy and bring it to greater heights." Chen Lian said apologetically, "Originally, I didn't have much confidence in making a spirit-nurturing treasure. I needed to slow down and accumulate some experience. However, I also wanted to become a master refiner as soon as possible so that Ancestor Tianjiang can fulfill his long-cherished wish. That's why I had to use Landslide as a test subject." Lu Ping patted Chen Lian's shoulder emotionally and said, "There's no need to be so polite between us. Now that Landslide has successfully condensed the 7th enchantment and upgraded it to a spirit-nurturing treasure, you are now a true Grandmaster Craftsman. Senior Marshal Uncle Tianjiang must be very happy. You should be happy." Chen Lian smiled bitterly. Lu Ping continued to ask, "Earlier, you said that Ancestor Tianjiang doesn't have much time left in his lifespan?" Chen Lian nodded and said in a low voice, "Although Ancestor Tianjiang entered the sect late and did not rank high among the first generation of practitioners, he matured slowly. Actually, his lifespan is second only to Ancestor Tian Xiang and Ancestor Tian Fan among the 6 Laozu of the first generation. He has long passed the threshold of 800 years old. Ancestor Tian Xiang suffered many injuries in his early years and has no hope of entering the mid-Dharma stage. I estimate his lifespan to be around 900 years old." Lu Ping nodded. Only now did he realize that although these younger disciples had their own achievements, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that they had always been under the protection of the first generation of practitioners. That was why they had been able to grow so fearlessly until now. But now, he suddenly realized that this layer of protection had actually been provided for them for a long time, to the point where it was on the verge of collapsing. At that moment, Lu Ping's mood became exceptionally heavy. He even seemed to be a little hesitant, not knowing what to do next. Tian Xiang, Tian Fan, and Tian Shui Laozu were still fine, but Tian Kong Laozu only had a few decades left in his lifespan. Tian Jiang Laozu probably had less than 100 years left. Although Tian Lu Laozu was slightly better off, he had probably passed the threshold of 700 years. Even if he could live 1,000 years, he would only have about 200 years left. Furthermore, although early Dharma adepts had a lifespan of 800 to 1,000 years, that 1,000 years was just an upper limit. Very few early Dharma adepts could actually reach this height. At this moment, Chen Lian pulled himself together and said, "Forget it, let's not talk about these heavy matters. Let's first see how to repair your water-controlling flag. This is the work of the Fei Ling sect's crafting grandmaster, Jiao Yuqiang. Even during the battle of the Fei Ling sect that year, Jiao Yuqiang used this water-controlling flag to defend himself against the combined attacks of 2 to 3 Dharma adepts. If I can repair it, I believe that my crafting skills will improve by leaps and bounds. Lu Ping laughed and said, "Don't you need to rest for a while? Upgrading Landslide has already put so much effort into both of us." Chen Lian waved his hand and said, "I know a little about your level of cultivation. With just a few days, how could your inner yuan be depleted? Crafting weapons is not like making pills. You need to strike while the iron is hot." Lu Ping knew that Chen Lian was anxious, so he let him be. Fortunately, although the spiritual materials needed to repair the water-controlling flag were extremely rare, there were not many of them. The reason why it had not been repaired in the past few thousand years was because the crafting hall had never mastered an extremely advanced purification technique. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. The battle on Frost Island had gradually escalated. Bloody Mara and the Dharma adepts frequently clashed. Even the Zhenling sect was gradually filled with a somber atmosphere due to the increasing number of casualties. At this moment, in Lu Ping's hand, there was a small triangular flag that was only the size of a palm. Layers of black light hung down from the small flag. The damage on the flag had already been repaired. Now, the water-controlling flag was a true spiritual treasure. Chen Lian watched from the side as Lu Ping happily played with the water-controlling flag in his hand. He smiled and said, "The crafting of this water-controlling flag is really exquisite. This time, repairing the water-controlling flag will be a great help to my crafting skills." Lu Ping suddenly waved his hand and put away the water-controlling flag. He said seriously, "Do you want to learn the spirit fire smelting purification technique?" Chen Lian's eyes brightened, but then he smiled and said, "This is your trump card, right? Are you really willing to teach me?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "This spirit fire smelting purification technique was originally a smithing technique, but I combined it with other alchemy techniques to form a new purification technique. If you can help me forge the ocean bell, I will teach you this secret technique." Chen Lian said without thinking, "It's a deal." But then Chen Lian said, "You must have some other plans, right?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "That's right. You still need to forge a sword for me." "Sword? What sword?" Chen Lian was confused. Based on his understanding of Lu Ping, this would not be an easy task. But if it was just a flying sword, why was he so serious? A sword that you can only forge after you enter the Dharma stage. Chapter 9:15. Frost Island was still in the hands of the human cultivators. Even though the human cultivators were divided into different camps on Frost Island, Mara had always firmly controlled Frost Island under his continuous attacks. When Lu Ping arrived at Frost Island from the teleportation formation, he felt as if he had returned to the time when Frost Island had just discovered a large spirit stone mine. Cultivators from various sects swarmed over, and the entire Frost Island looked desolate. After so many years of management by the sects of the North Sea, the entire Frost Island had been built with countless beautiful pavilions and towers. Everywhere was covered with ice that shone under the sunlight. But now, when Lu Ping looked around, the entire Frost Island seemed to have returned to the past. The only difference was that the ground was not covered with snow and ice, but ice shards. The ice palaces and ice towers that had been built over decades had all turned into ruins in this battle. Even though Frost Island had not been breached by Mara, the aftershocks of the continuous battles still affected the island. The power of the island's protective formation was all directed to the outside. Without the protection of the formation, the ice sculptures all collapsed in the aftershocks of the battle. Outside the island came the sky-shaking rumbling sounds of spells, divine arts, and artifacts clashing. Lu Ping's divine sense spread out in all directions, and he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. It was said that although Frost Island had been holding its ground all this time, it was still unable to repel Mo Luo's attacks, and it even suffered heavy casualties. The main reason was because the sects on Frost Island were fighting on their own, and they never interacted with each other. It looked like they were absolutely right. At this time, battle cries shook the sky in the northwest direction. Even though there were aftershocks of battles coming from other directions, the intensity of the battles was not on the same level. Lu Ping stepped on a streak of light and arrived at the coast where Zhenling was stationed in a moment. He saw that Zhenling had sent out 20 to 30 core forging cultivators. They were surrounded by the protective formation of the mother and child traction formation and were attacking a dozen core forging Mara in the sky outside the island. On the surface of the sea, over 100 blood condensation disciples formed a dozen or so 3 talents 5 elemental Dao soldier formation and fought against a few hundred blood condensation minions. From afar, the battle looked intense. However, from Lu Ping's point of view, it seemed like Zhenling was taking the opportunity to let his disciples practice the Dao soldier formation. Although both sides were still fighting to the death, it also seemed like a tacit understanding between Zhenling and Mara's clan on the battlefield. Lu Ping didn't care too much. He jumped out of the island's protective array and rushed towards the dozens of core forging realm Big Mara in the sky outside the island's protective array. However, this time, Lu Ping was much more cautious. When his divine sense rushed out of Frost Island, he had already carefully checked the surrounding void. Other than the divine senses that Laozu were familiar with, the Dharma Plane Blood Mara really didn't appear nearby. Lu Ping's sudden appearance not only surprised the dozens of big Mara in the sky above Frost Island, but also surprised the Zhenling cultivators. However, when the Zhenling cultivators saw that the person who appeared was Lu Ping, their original reproachful expression instantly turned into joy. Many of the Zhenling cultivators who were watching the battle on the island even cheered. At the moment when Lu Ping appeared, 2 blue rainbows shot out from his body. The Autumn Water Sword and the Yi-Rin Sword respectively killed 2 Azuras that were equivalent to early core forging cultivators. The 2 Azuras tried to dodge, but the flying spiral chain kill was famous for its speed and difficulty in dodging. It was a famous ambush sword art in the cultivation world, not to mention that they were only Azuras that were equivalent to early and middle core forging cultivators. Of the 2 Azuras, one was beheaded and the other was cut in half. They roared as they fell towards the sea, but Wang Qi immediately followed up and pierced through their skulls. A black ball suddenly exploded next to Lu Ping. A puff of black mist appeared, and countless sounds began to explode in Lu Ping's ears. Then, like needles, they stabbed towards Lu Ping's divine sense. Lu Ping snorted coldly and suddenly turned around to shout at the black mist, "Ja!" The black mist immediately exploded and dissipated like a balloon that had been inflated too much. A mournful roar suddenly sounded in the sky, as if someone was suffering great pain. However, after this roar, not only did the Zhenling core forging cultivators in the sky slow down, but even the Zhenling Dao soldier formation that was fighting against Mara in the blood condensation realm above the sea was affected. Immediately, a few disciples were injured by Mara. A green light flashed in Lu Ping's eyes, and the 2 swords suddenly shot out 1,000 feet to the right. With a twist, the mournful roar stopped abruptly. Severed limbs and a cloud of blood mist scattered in the air 1,000 feet away, and a head with blood flowing out from all 7 orifices fell into the sea, creating a huge splash. At that moment, Azura suddenly appeared behind Lu Ping. With a sinister smile, it threw a huge machete at Lu Ping's back. Just as the machete was about to hit Lu Ping's back, the machete seemed to have sunk into layers of sponge. The force contained in the machete was being stripped away layer by layer. Seeing that the situation was not good, the Azura wanted to withdraw the machete and retreat. Unexpectedly, when it pulled back, it found that transparent threads had already wrapped around the machete. The Azura shook with all its might, trying to disintegrate the transparent threads on the surface of the machete. However, the speed at which the threads wrapped around the machete was much faster than the speed at which it disintegrated. At that moment, the Azura realized that the transparent threads were actually tiny water lines. The machete had already been wrapped so tightly that only an outline was left. The Azura's sneak attack happened in the blink of an eye. When Lu Ping turned around, the Azura was so shocked that it did not even have time to withdraw its accompanying machete. It rolled up a gust of wind and was about to retreat. However, Lu Ping suddenly reached out and clenched his fist. The water vapor around him quickly condensed into a huge palm, holding the gust of wind tightly in his hand. The Shura's terrified roar came from the palm. Water splashed out from the palm as the Shura struggled, but it could not break free from the palm's restraint. Lu Ping clenched his fist, and so did the giant water vapor hand. More and more Jinling disciples who came to watch the battle suddenly found that the giant water vapor hand seemed to have shrunk a little. Then, the palm opened, and everyone saw that the wind Azura was covered in water droplets from the inside out. It fell straight down to the surface of the sea. In just a moment, the wind Azura, which was equivalent to a late-stage core forging cultivator, had become a corpse filled with water. The Jinling cultivators watching from below were dumbfounded. In the blink of an eye, 4 large Mara Azuras were killed one after another. The Jinling cultivators watching the battle were filled with excitement, and the Jinling cultivators who participated in the battle were also greatly boosted. On the other hand, the group of Azuras were in chaos. Some continued to charge forward bravely, while others began to flee. The Jinling cultivators took the opportunity to attack and surround the Azuras. However, Lu Ping was hovering in the air and did not attack anymore. Instead, he watched as the cultivators of his sect began to chase and kill the fleeing Mara clan. The Jinling cultivators did not chase very far. Soon, snowflakes exploded in the sky, and the Jinling cultivators returned. Seeing this, Lu Ping also returned to Frost Island. At the same time, Lu Ping also noticed that the aftermath of the battle from the northwest of Frost Island seemed to have stopped. Either Mara had stopped attacking, or Xianling sect, which was defending the northwest, had repelled Mara's attack. Without exchanging greetings with the many Jinling disciples, Tian Shui Laozu's voice was already roaring in Lu Ping's ears. "Brat, hurry up and get over here." Lu Ping cupped his hands apologetically to his fellow disciples and hurried towards the temporary palace. Although many of the ice sculptures on Frost Island had collapsed, the temporary palace was still the place where the Jinling Laozu rested. Naturally, it would not collapse from the aftermath of the battle. In the temporary palace, the 2 Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, took the first seats. Tian Fan Laozu had been operating in the East Sea for more than 20 years. After the crisis on Frost Island, Jiang Tianlin Laozu went to Jingzhi Island to replace him. Tian Fan Laozu and Tian Shui Laozu were gathered on Frost Island. This was equivalent to a Dharma adept, and it could be seen how much importance Jinling placed on Frost Island. Under the 2 Laozu were Guitian Shan Laozu, Chu Xuanqing Laozu, and Yuan Xianshu Laozu. Jinling had unknowingly set up 5 Dharma adepts on Frost Island. Lu Ping was greatly shocked. He did not know why Jinling would set up such a force in such a secretive manner, but it had never appeared on Frost Island before. Could it be that they had really come for the Spirit Stone mine on Frost Island? Or perhaps the disaster of Mara this time had really reached such a serious stage. Below them were Spiritual Master Xian Qin and Spiritual Master Xian Senior. "Do you know how much blood Mara was paying attention to you at that time?" Tian Shui Laozu's face was as cold as frost. When he saw Lu Ping enter the palace, he immediately yelled harshly. Lu Ping knew that his appearance just now had almost ruined something. In reality, he had already realized something after killing 4 Mara in a row. That was why he did not participate in the encirclement against Mara. He hurriedly smiled and said, "This disciple greets Laozu and senior ants." Seeing that no one paid attention to him, he smiled and said, "This disciple had just arrived here and saw that my sect's disciples were fighting against Mara. That was why I lent a helping hand. I did not think that I would attract 3 blood Mara Laozu to watch from the shadows. I am ashamed." At this time, Tianfan Laozu opened his eyes and said, "There is also a Jade Azura." When Lu Ping heard this, he was shocked and said, "Even a Jade Azura appeared?" Then, he thought of something and looked at the 5 Laozu. He suddenly said, "No wonder 5 Laozu came all at once." Even Senior Antmaster Tianfan rushed back from the East Sea. Tianfan Laozu smiled and shook his head, saying, "5? It's 6. When Lu Ping heard this, he was stunned. Before he could carefully ponder what Tianfan Laozu meant, he heard Tian Shui Laozu say coldly, "Even now, you still think that you are a core forging disciple? 3rd generation minor repairs? You are looking down on yourself too much." Lu Ping didn't say anything. At this time, he could only listen and learn. Otherwise, the furious Tian Shui Laozu would think of other ways to punish Lu Ping. Back then, Jiang Tianlin Laozu and Lu Tianling Laozu had suffered a lot in her hands. Only Tian Qin Laozu was favored by her. Lu Ping knew that he didn't have Tian Qin Laozu's ability. At this time, Guotianshan Laozu suddenly said, "Junior nephew Lu has just arrived at Frost Island. Perhaps you don't know the situation yet, so it's hard to avoid mistakes. Although we have exposed a lot of our strength, at least we have forced out a Jade Azura. It can be said that there are gains and losses." Among Jinling's second-generation disciples, other than Tian Qin Laozu, only Tianshan Laozu, this kind and honest person, had not been trained by Tian Shui Laozu. Tian Shui Laozu still gave him some face and didn't give Lu Ping a hard time. Chapter 9:16. In the world of practitioners, Mara, who was equivalent to the blood condensation stage, was called Little Mara, while those in the core forging stage were naturally called Big Mara. As for those in the Dharma Mara, there were some changes. Due to the existence of spiritual treasures, they were classified more carefully. When Mara had just become a blood Mara, his cultivation level was equivalent to that of an early Dharma adept. However, because Mara usually had spiritual treasures accompanying him, almost every Mara's strength was above that of an early Dharma adept. Normally, only mid-Dharma adepts would be able to deal with them. However, after Mara had become a blood Azura, there was still a way for him to improve. Above Mara, there was still the Jade Mara. This kind of cultivation level was equivalent to that of a mid-Dharma adept, but its strength was close to that of a late Dharma adept. Perhaps only Tian Shui Laozu and Tian Fan Laozu together could deal with it. And above the Jade Mara, there was another kind of Mara. This kind of Mara was something that even great adepts would have to avoid. This kind of Mara was someone who dared to fight against the pure Yang Laozu. After Tian Shui Laozu heard Tian Fan Laozu's words, she just glared at Lu Ping. The two did not speak. However, some things had to be made clear, so Tian Fan Laozu spoke at this time. "Times are different now. Your identity has changed since you defeated Tian Shu and killed the Golden Jiao Island Lord's spiritual companion. You are no longer the water sword deity, but more importantly, you are an expert who is no weaker than the Dharma adept Laozu. You are someone who can control the fate of the sect. Your every word and action can even be used to represent the whole of Jinling." Lu Ping was dumbfounded by Tian Fan Laozu's words. He could not be bothered to admire Tian Shu Laozu's embarrassed and angry expression. He said, "Grand Uncle Master, your disciple does not dare to accept your words." Chu Tiancheng Laozu, who was standing at the side, started laughing. Tian Shui Laozu glared at him fiercely. Chu Tiancheng Laozu immediately put on a straight face and said, "This is not a question of whether you are qualified or not. It is a fact that others will see it this way. Although you are not a Dharma adept, you have the strength of a Dharma adept. Naturally, others will see you as the 14th Dharma adept of our sect." Chu Tiancheng Laozu paused for a while, as if recalling the incident where he avoided the battle and went to the Central Plains. His tone softened and he said, "Anyway, it is the same for the Shura. With your strength participating in the battle just now, in Mara's eyes, it is us humans who broke the rules first. If their blood demons or even the Jade Shura were to attack our low-level cultivators, what would happen then?" It was not that Lu Ping did not realize the problem that Chu Tiancheng Laozu mentioned. In fact, it was precisely because he realized it that he purposely used his own cultivation as a cover to make Mara suffer a loss. However, he did not expect that Mara was also a spirit of the world and a bloodthirsty demon who was not afraid of death. Previously, it was only due to the fact that both sides were of equal strength and had a tacit understanding during the battle. If Lu Ping really acted presumptuously, these blood demons would naturally not be stingy with their attacks. At that time, the ones who would suffer a loss would most likely be Lu Ping himself and many low-level cultivators who were Jinling. The Battle of Frost Island became more and more tragic as the stalemate between Mara and the human race became more and more intense. However, Because all the sects in the North Sea were sweeping away the snow in front of their door, the human cultivators were unable to accumulate enough strength to fight against Mara. This allowed Mara to choose a place outside of Frost Island to concentrate his advantage and attack at will. The sects that were attacked by Mara were in danger and suffered heavy casualties. At the beginning of the Battle of Frost Island, because Zhenling occupied the largest area on Frost Island, the area it defended was naturally also the largest. Therefore, it faced the most sneak attacks from Mara. However, after more than 100 years of accumulation, the second-generation disciples of Zhenling were in their prime, the third-generation disciples were already catching up, and even the fourth-generation disciples were beginning to show their talents. The strength of the sect was already something that the other sects in the North Sea could not hope to match. Therefore, Zhenling gathered a total of about 100 core forging cultivators on Frost Island in one go. This was almost a third of the total number of core forging cultivators in Zhenling. Among these hundreds of core forging cultivators, the second-generation disciples were the elites. Most of them were in the middle and late stages of core forging. The third-generation disciples were the main force. Most of them were in the middle and early stages of core forging. There were also some powerful disciples like Du Feng, Zhang Xianbei, and spiritual master Xuanyu who had entered the late stage of core forging. As for the fourth-generation disciples, they had just matured and were mostly in the first and second levels of core forging. With such a powerful group of cultivators, the 3 talents 5 elements Dao soldier formation formed by almost 1,000 blood condensation disciples, and the support of the nearby Jade Sword sect, Chongming sect, and Water Mist Pavilion, Zhenling was able to give Mara a powerful counterattack every time he was attacked. As time went by, these Mara gradually realized that there were a few areas on Frost Island that were quite strong. Every time Mara attacked Frost Island, he would suffer heavy casualties. Based on their instincts, these evil Luos had consciously avoided the few areas where the Zhenling sect was the strongest when they attacked the Huangli Island's Grand Formation. Therefore, in the end, even though Zhenling sect's area of defense was the largest, they had suffered the least losses. After Mara chose a place to attack Huangli Island, he would often carry out feint attacks in other areas. This was to prevent the cultivators in these areas from reinforcing the main area. The sect that was attacked would be more than happy to use this excuse to preserve their strength. Or, like Zhenling today, they would seize the time to practice their sect's Dao soldier formation and increase their disciples' combat experience. Helplessly, Lu Ping had no choice but to retract his sharpness and observe the battle between his disciples and Mo Luo with a lofty attitude. He even watched silently as his disciples died in battle, unable to save them in time. Ants, those below the Dharma stage were ants. This was also why, although the cultivation world divided the various forces into different levels, the minimum qualification was a Dharma stage cultivator, Laozu. If there was no Dharma stage cultivator, even if a force had tens or hundreds of core forging stage cultivators, in the eyes of the cultivation world, it would still be considered a weak force. It was not worthy of being called a noble. What a Dharma stage cultivator could represent was a kind of inheritance. Fortunately, there was still Lu Ping's eldest disciple on Frost Island who was constantly fighting outside. Wang Qi's sword skills had improved by leaps and bounds after advancing to the core forging stage. With Lu Ping's guidance, Wang Qi's improvement was even more solid and reliable. After a long time, Lu Ping realized that Zhenling had never used his full strength during Mara's previous attacks. Even during the early stages of Mara's attack on Frost Island, even though Zhenling had been in an extremely passive position, the Zhenling disciples on Frost Island still used the tactic of taking turns to defend against Mara's attacks. They had never thought of defeating Mara in one go. Ever since he was reprimanded by Tian Fan and Tian Shui, Lu Ping wandered around the Frost Island controlled by Zhenling as if he had nothing to do. However, this also made many of Zhenling's fourth-generation disciples very excited. Every day, other than Wang Qi coming to learn sword skills and cultivation, there were also many disciples who came because of Lu Ping's reputation. Lu Ping did not reject any of them and gave them advice one by one. In the end, after every battle, Lu Ping even started to comment on the process of the battle from the ice platform. Not only did many fourth-generation disciples come to listen, even the third-generation disciples would lower their statuses and come to listen. There were even many disciples from other sects who came because of Lu Ping's reputation. After all, what Lu Ping was talking about were things that could save one's life. They were real combat experiences and not just empty words. His cultivation base, his position, and everything he had seen and heard meant that he was destined to have insights that far surpassed the others. He was able to make incisive analyses. No one would refuse to live with their own life. This process was also a kind of accumulation of knowledge for Lu Ping. The two great arts that he relied on to cultivate, whether it was 100 rivers flow into the sea or blue sea's mulberry fields, both were a way to gather tens of thousands of arts. Whether it was 10,000 arts returned to one or 10,000 swords returned to origin, they all needed a cultivator's accumulation, and this accumulation came from the present. Amidst the purple mist, the two huge talismans shone brightly. The talismans that had already been formed a long time ago were filled with many more runes, filling up the two talismans even more. It was only at this time that Lu Ping realized that these two most important art talismans were like a framework that had already been built, or a skeleton that had already been erected. They were far from being completed, and there were still countless flesh and blood that needed to be filled in, just like the runes that were continuously being formed. Only after crossing the pass would one know that the pass was not the end. The strange dragon in the Golden Dan had been entrenched in Lu Ping's unbelievably huge 9-vein Golden Dan ever since it was formed, motionless as if it was waiting for the moment to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. However, just as the two runes that revolved around the Golden Dan began to grow more and more plentiful, the giant dragon suddenly seemed to have turned into a tautai that was looking for delicious food but could not obtain it. The huge body that was originally entrenched began to wander around the Golden Dan, as if it was looking for a loophole in the Golden Dan, so that it could break this cage and rush out from inside. However, how could this 9th-grade Golden Dan be so easily broken? After the giant dragon searched up and down without any results, it really became furious, especially the two magic talismans. The runes inside grew thicker and thicker, like two ripe fruits that were getting closer and closer to the Golden Dan. The attraction towards the strange dragon that was imprisoned in the Golden Dan was also getting stronger and stronger. The delicious food was right in front of it, but it could not be obtained. The increasingly irritable giant dragon finally could not contain its soaring anger and fiercely slammed into the golden cage. Boom! Lu Ping, who was talking incessantly on the ice stage, was suddenly startled. Then, under the puzzled gazes of many cultivators below the stage, he smiled and said, "That's all for today. Everyone, please disperse." After saying that, he directly closed his eyes and did not speak another word. At the same time, all the Laozu on Frost Island felt alarmed. Every one of them seemed to have heard the roar that came from the depths of their divine thoughts, but also from the Dharma figure. At this moment, every Laozu put down what they were doing and extended their gazes and divine thoughts in the direction of Lu Ping. The sound of the Golden Dan was a sign of attaining the Dharma figure. They just didn't know who this person was and what grade of the Golden Dan was. Chapter 9:17. The sound of the golden core drum was a phenomenon that could only occur for practitioners who had reached the 7th grade golden core stage and above before they entered the Dharma stage. The appearance of this phenomenon often indicated the vitality of the Dharma power that was being nurtured in the golden core. Practitioners at the peak of the core forging stage who could produce the sound of the golden core drum had a much higher chance of reaching the Dharma stage than those who had never produced the sound of the golden core drum. Lu Ping's divine will appeared in the core space, and he quickly discovered the changes in the golden core purple aura. The Tung Fult's spells seemed to be deliberately luring the strange dragon, circling around the golden core and constantly provoking the anger of the strange dragon that had been imprisoned by the golden core. And at the edge of the golden core purple aura, the few spells that Lu Ping had condensed seemed to have been pushed to the edge again, as if they had been pushed to the edge by the churning purple aura when the strange dragon had first collided with the barrier of the golden core. At this moment, Lu Ping's divine will sensed something again. From a direction that he had not passed through, there were several divine wills that were rushing towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping snorted coldly, and a huge wave of divine will surged out. Very quickly, he set up a huge divine will barrier around himself, covering Lu Ping completely to prevent himself from being disturbed. It seemed that because of the sound of the golden core drum, although these divine wills had sensed that they had already entered the area where Jinling was, a core forging stage practitioner would not attract too much attention. One of the divine wills, which was obviously an early Dharma adept, unscrupulously crashed into the divine will barrier that Lu Ping had set up. Then, all the divine wills that were trying to penetrate the divine will barrier to find out the identity of the golden core drum cultivator stopped. This was because the scene in front of them made the divine wills of many Dharma adepts shudder. Jinling's rise was too fast, so fast that all the sects in the North Sea were caught unprepared. Now, another Jinling's peak core forging stage cultivator was showing signs of a golden core drumming. This was the final sign of attaining the Dharma stage. How could this not make Laozu, the Dharma adepts of the various sects, jealous? Therefore, after realizing that the golden core drum sound cultivator came from Jinling, many Dharma idol Laozu tried to disturb the Jinling cultivator through their spiritual sense with hostility. At the very least, they could not let the cultivator smoothly accept the benefits brought by the golden core drum sound. However, this rash early Dharma adept had no idea that he had kicked an iron plate with his foot. When this Dharma adept crashed into Lu Ping's divine will barrier, it was as if he had suddenly plunged into a whirlpool of water. Countless swirling currents instantly caused his divine will to lose all ability to detect anything. However, this Dharma adept's divine will was also very condensed. Very quickly, in this extremely uncomfortable atmosphere, he detected a golden light hidden in the whirlpool of divine will. The Dharma adept was overjoyed. Suppressing the nauseating feeling of dizziness, he crashed into the golden light. However, immediately after that, an extremely tragic howl came from the divine will, scaring all the other divine wills into silence and waiting to see what would happen next. The divine will finally struggled out of the golden light. The few divine wills nearby were instantly shocked. This divine will looked like it had obviously been torn off by someone, and it looked extremely weak. The divine will was filled with hatred, but more than that, it was filled with fear. Seeing this divine will retreat in a panic, the few divine wills nearby hesitated for a moment. However, very quickly, an existence that was obviously stronger than the others had already crashed into Lu Ping once again. A mid-Dharma adept. However, this was different from the previous divine will that had deliberately tried to destroy Lu Ping's purpose of training. When this divine will crashed into Lu Ping, it conveyed a desire to spar. However, it did not wait for Lu Ping's reply before it had already entangled with Lu Ping's divine will. Lu Ping thought for a moment and put away the meteoric poison power shield that he had refined as he pleased. Instead, he took out another item from his storage instrument and prepared to give this person a vicious blow. However, when he thought about how this item had once fiercely offended the Songhai sects Dongji and Dongyi Laozu at the Phantom City auction, and how it could be restored after being corroded by the meteoric poison power shield, this item was far too vicious. Furthermore, it was entangled with a large family in the Central Plains. In the end, Lu Ping finally took it back. "Forget it, I'll just fight with you for a while. I'm not necessarily afraid of you." Lu Ping's divine will instantly turned into a deep pool, and the divine will that was challenging him jumped into the pool without hesitation. Both sides were instantly entangled. Although Lu Ping was at a disadvantage in the beginning, he soon managed to fend off the onslaught and slowly rebuilt his defense. Although he defended more than he attacked, every time he launched an attack, he had no choice but to force the enemy to withdraw their defenses. Both sides actually entered a stalemate in an instant. At this point, even if Lu Ping still did not reveal his identity, the divine wills of the Dharma adepts wandering in the void would definitely know. In the entire Jinling sect, only Lu Xianping would be able to pull off something like this. However, these divine wills did not retreat, especially when they saw that Lu Ping was actually able to fight evenly with Hai Hun Laozu of the Hai Yen sect. This surprised many Laozu and made them look forward to the final result. In the ice palace, Tian Shui Laozu's face was full of anger. She said, "This is really outrageous. That Wang Shiqing did not know the inside story and was secretly taken advantage of by Lu Ping. He deserves it. This might be the Songhai sect's intention. Looks like after the matter of Frost Island is over, we really have to teach the Songhai sect a lesson. But where did Hai Hun get the guts to do this? Does he think I don't exist? How dare he treat our sect's disciple like this?" Tianqing Laozu said anxiously, "Then what should we do? Are we going to let Hai Hun Laozu tangle with martial nephew Lu like this? It seems that although martial nephew Lu has a tight defense, Hai Hun Laozu is also a cultivator of the same generation as the two martial uncles. As time goes on, martial nephew Lu will inevitably be at a disadvantage." Tian Fan Laozu shook his head and said, "The Hai Yin sect doesn't have the guts to hurt our sect's disciple. This is the other sects testing our strength. It is also an unintentional but spontaneous special alliance to contain our sect. The purpose is to see how much strength our sect has hidden on Frost Island. To be more precise, they are coming for me." Before Tianqing Laozu could say anything, Tian Fan Laozu had already ordered, "Junior sister, you, martial nephew Tian Shan, and Tian Shu should show our sect's attitude first. If other sects continue to test us, junior brother Tian Cheng can just rush up and fight. Just make the situation chaotic." Hearing that, Patriarch Heavenly Snow and Patriarch Tianshan and Patriarch Tianshu nodded. Closing their eyes, they sat down cross-legged within the ice palace, not saying anything else. A powerful divine sense surged out from the ice palace, causing a whistling sound to ring through the world. Tianqing Laozu looked at Tian Fan Laozu with a puzzled look and said, "Martial uncle, when I go out and fight, if I cause a divine sense battle, what should we do?" The fan in Tian Fan Laozu's hand opened with a swoosh sound, and the air in the entire ice palace seemed to start moving. He said, "Then we might have to teach these people a lesson." The battle between Lu Ping and Hai Hun Laozu had definitely shocked all the Dharma adepts watching, including the few Dharma adepts from Junling's own family. It was true that Lu Ping's strength was comparable to an early Dharma adept, but when they saw that Lu Ping's divine sense could even compete with a mid-Dharma adept, Lu Ping's behavior of challenging the limits of the Dharma adepts of the North Sea was enough to make many Dharma adepts have dark thoughts. Two Dharma adepts' divine senses rushed out from the spectating divine senses, actually trying to attack Lu Ping together with Hai Hun Laozu. Just as the two divine senses were about to clash with Lu Ping's and Hai Hun Laozu's divine senses, three divine senses pressed down on the battlefield. It was true that Tian Shui and Tian Shu Laozu were not the only ones in Jinling. Tianshan had actually arrived at some point in time. A few of the divine senses saw the aggressive Jinling adepts and quickly retreated. However, many divine senses were still patrolling the area. The two divine senses that suddenly interfered were initially aiming to heavily injure Lu Ping. However, when they sensed the arrival of Tian Shui Laozu, Tian Shan, and Tian Shu Laozu, it was obvious that they had the intention to retreat. In reality, when these two divine senses interfered in the battle between Lu Ping and Hai Hun Laozu already had the intention to retreat. However, because the battle of divine senses was not ordinary, it was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. Otherwise, he would have to give up part of his divine senses when he retreated. And these two divine senses obviously did not want Hai Hun Laozu to retreat just like that. Hence, in an instant, the situation of 3 against 1 really began to play out in front of Tian Shui Laozu and the other two. Tian Shui Laozu's divine sense was immediately displayed by many cultivators' divine senses. Everyone could imagine how furious Tian Shui Laozu was right now. However, the three of them did not dare to participate in the battle of divine senses between Lu Ping and Hai Hun Laozu. The entanglement of divine senses was actually far more dangerous than a battle of techniques. If Tian Shui Laozu and the others were to hastily join in, not only would they lose the deterrence of Laozu's divine senses, it would also cause Lu Ping to face an even more dangerous situation. Of course, more importantly, because of the three of them joining in, it caused Lu Ping's divine sense to be on the brink of collapse. However, now, even though Lu Ping appeared to be on the brink of collapse, He was like an unkillable cockroach, lingering on the brink of collapse without falling. On the contrary, including Hai Hun Laozu, the three divine senses were getting more and more fearful. Only when they personally fought with Lu Ping's divine sense did they realize the tenacity and condensation hidden within Lu Ping's divine sense. This kind of divine sense was able to increase so quickly, yet it did not affect his cultivation at all. Just thinking about it, the three of them felt that it was inconceivable. Hai Hun Laozu's divine sense finally broke free from the entanglement between the four of them. He did not even bid farewell to Tian Shui Laozu and the others' divine senses before hurriedly retreating. Fortunately, although Hai Hun Laozu's battle with Lu Ping was domineering, he did not lose the demeanor of an elder. Moreover, when the two divine senses attacked, he also maintained sufficient vigilance and did not take the opportunity to hit them when they were down. Therefore, although Tian Shui Laozu was extremely angry, she did not stop Hai Hun Laozu's divine sense from leaving. Without Hai Hun Laozu's entanglement, the two early Dharma adepts' divine senses that were fighting with Lu Ping's divine sense were instantly thrown into chaos. They wanted to retreat, but they were afraid that Tian Shui Laozu and the others would intercept them midway. Thus, they could only brace themselves and continue to fight with Lu Ping. At this moment, the news of an enemy attack suddenly came from Frost Island. The entire Frost Island was immediately put on lockdown, and all the Dharma adepts' divine senses began to withdraw. Lu Ping ultimately still considered the bigger picture and did not make things difficult for the two of them. Gradually, he began to take a defensive stance. The two divine senses immediately felt as if they had been pardoned and quickly retreated back to their respective areas. As for Tian Shui Laozu, although she was extremely unwilling, she was after all the first-generation Dharma adept of the North Sea, Laozu. She understood the importance of the matter and did not purposely make things difficult for them. However, just as the two divine senses were secretly delighted and were about to retreat, a scorching hot divine sense suddenly attacked with unparalleled anger. The scorching pain instantly burned a part of the two Laozu's divine senses into ashes. On the other side of Frost Island, dozens of miles away, two miserable cries came one after another. Lu Ping kept the small banner in his hand. His pale face showed that Lu Ping was currently in a very bad state. However, when he opened his eyes, a flash of joy flashed in his eyes, but it was hard to tell what he was thinking. At this moment, Lu Ping had already sensed that the divine senses of Tian Shui Laozu and the others had already left. Lu Ping's heart suddenly jumped. Only then did he realize that this time, Mara's attack was no small matter. Otherwise, it would not have attracted the attention of all the Dharma adepts at once. Could it be that this time, it would be another all-out attack by the Mara clan? Lu Ping hurriedly stood up. However, the dizziness in his head caused Lu Ping to almost fall down again. With great difficulty, he used the inner yuan in his body to stabilize his staggering body. Within the golden elixir, the dispirited strange dragon opened its huge mouth and sucked in fiercely. The Danxia purple qi in the core space quickly circulated and gathered towards the golden elixir. Then, it seeped into the golden elixir, as if it was swallowed by the strange dragon. With the nourishment and recovery of the inner yuan, although Lu Ping's divine sense was unable to completely recover in a short period of time, at least his pale face had a tinge of red. He was able to control his inner yuan and use flying techniques. After entering the ice palace, only then did Lu Ping realize that the few Laozus seemed to have disappeared. Lu Ping also knew that every time Jinling and Mara fought, one or more of the few Laozus would be hidden at the side. One reason was to secretly protect their own disciples, and the other was to monitor Mara's side. However, the auras of the few Laozus in the ice palace had already disappeared. Obviously, they had all arrived near the coast of Frost Island. This also meant that this time, Mara's momentum was fierce. He was probably going to launch an all-out attack on the entire Frost Island, and the situation was extremely bad. At this time, Lu Ping couldn't care too much about this. Without the support of abundant soul power, Lu Ping could only use half of his strength. Randomly finding a secret room, Lu Ping lit a piece of soul-calming incense that hadn't completely burned out. Then he stuffed a soul-returning pill made from the soul-devouring crystal of a great devil cultivator into his mouth. A small banner slowly rose from behind Lu Ping, and a strange ripple immediately started reverberating in the secret room. Chapter 9:18. Guitianshan Laozu looked worriedly at Mara's army that had almost completely covered the sea in front of them. Tianshu Laozu suddenly appeared beside Guitianshan and said, "Junior brother Gua, did you find out how many blood Mara are hiding among them?" Guitianshan Laozu's expression was rather ugly as he said, "I only found traces of an ice shura. But senior brother, did you notice that the number of demonic cultivators in Mara's army is much lower than before?" Tianshu Laozu looked at the approaching Mara's army and could not help but look ugly as well. He said, "If that's the case, could it be that Mara is also plotting something? But I did find traces of a wood elemental blood shura just now. That's quite rare." Guitianshan Laozu's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He said, "Could it be that one of the shura's lairs is on an island covered with forests? To be able to raise a wood elemental shura to the Dharma plane, the island where the lairs are located must be very large." A wave of heat swept past. Guitianshan Laozu and Tianshu Laozu looked behind them. Tianqing Laozu just happened to appear in front of them and said, "2 water, 1 wind, 1 wood for blood shuras. Other than that, there's also a hidden blood demon. It's a setup to counter the strength of our sect that was exposed on Frost Island. This Mara has become a fucking demon." Although Ancestor Chancheng practiced a cultivation method of the fire property, he had learned a secret skill after he was ambushed by the demon clan and almost lost his life. This kind of detection secret skill was very effective in cracking the divine sense of concealment of practitioners at the same level. Although the All-Devil clan was also proficient in the secret skill of concealment, Ancestor Chancheng was still very sure that he could detect the traces of their activities. Tianshu Laozu was a meticulous person. He carefully pondered the results of Tianqing Laozu's investigation and said, "I'm afraid it's not that simple. These blood Mara are only targeting the 3 of us, Senior Aunt Tianshui and Junior Nephew Lu. Senior Aunt Tianshui can handle 2 blood Mara each, and we can handle 1 each. However, there are 2 problems." Tianqing Laozu did not understand immediately and said, "What problems?" Tianshu Laozu sighed and said, "The first problem is that in a one-on-one situation, the few of us will not be able to handle a blood Mara who has a primordial spiritual treasure." Tianshu Laozu paused and said, "At least the old man will not be a match for any blood Mara." Tianqing Laozu's face turned a little ugly. It was not because of Tianshu Laozu, but because even though he was stronger than Tianshu Laozu, he might not be a match for a blood demon or a blood shura. Guitianshan Laozu thought for a while and said, "With junior sister Xuanqin's guiding formation, it's not impossible. The old man thinks he can handle a blood shura." Guitianshan Laozu's own strength was not bad, and he had also practiced an earth-based technique that was good at defense. If he only defended and did not attack, even a mid-Dharma adept might not be able to break through his defense. As for Junior Nephew Lu, this kid has too many tricks up his sleeves. We don't have to worry about him. The old man has more confidence in him than he does in himself. Tianqing Laozu snorted twice and said in an annoyed tone, "It's just that Junior Nephew Lu will need some time to recover from the chaotic battle of wills just now." Tianshu Laozu was still a little worried. Guitianshan Laozu said, "Let's wait for him for a while. Junior Nephew Lu is not someone who does not see the big picture. Moreover, blood Mara will not fight immediately, so we can drag it out." Tianqing Laozu said nonchalantly, "Senior Uncle Tian Fan has not been exposed yet. Once Senior Uncle Tian Fan and the Wind and Snow Immortals work together, they can even handle a Jade Shura." Tianshu Laozu said helplessly, "This is the second thing I wanted to talk about. That day, Senior Uncle Tian Fan found a Jade Shura. Once it appears, no one on Frost Island other than Master and Senior Uncle Tian Shui will be able to stop it. Once the 2 of them work together to fight the Jade Shura, we will not be able to stop the Blood Mara even with the power of the formation." Tianshu Laozu's words stunned Tianshan and Tianqing Laozu for a moment. They had really forgotten about these things. Tiancheng Laozu's expression did not look good either. He said, "Then what should we do? Ask for help from the sect, or warn the other sects? Maybe this time, it's just that the number of Mara stationed here is a little more, and the other sects do not have this much pressure." Tianshan Laozu signaled Tiancheng Laozu to stay calm, but he still said, "This time, if we want to defend Frost Island, we must ask for reinforcements from other sections. Don't forget me, when Hai Hun Laozu and junior nephew Lu were fighting, there were 2 Dharma adepts from the Central Plains who were injured by junior brother Tiancheng. Their strength will definitely decrease. But don't worry, senior uncle Tian Fan and senior uncle Tian Shui must have noticed the abnormality, and they probably have a plan to deal with it." Only now did Tiancheng Laozu and Tian Shu Laozu realize that Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu had not appeared since the beginning. In the secret room, Lu Ping suddenly opened his eyes. The space in front of him rippled, and a palm-sized hole appeared in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping reached his palm into the hole and took out a jade scroll. The hole in the space instantly distorted after being stirred by Lu Ping. Then, it disappeared completely, leaving only ripples in the space that spread in all directions. Lu Ping's divine consciousness swept through the jade scroll, and his eyebrows furrowed tightly. After thinking for a while, Lu Ping took out a sound transmission sword and said something into it. Then, the sound transmission sword flew out of the secret room. Lu Ping thought for a while and waved his hand. The artifact spirit Ruyu walked out of the space door of the Golden House and bowed to Lu Ping. "Ruyu greets Master." Lu Ping asked, "Ruyu, this is the Frost Island in the north of the North Sea. Can you sense anything here?" Ruyu shook her head and said, "Master, Ruyu did not find any trace of the ship. However, Ruyu has an impression of this Frost Island. Unfortunately, time has passed. In order to preserve my spirituality, Ruyu had to give up this memory." Lu Ping's eyes immediately brightened. Although Ruyu did not find any trace of the ship, she clearly showed a sense of familiarity with the Frost Island. This made Lu Ping believe that the ship of Fei Ling sect must have passed by the sea near the Frost Island. The sea where the Frost Island was located was in the north of the North Sea, and Fei Ling Mountain was to the south and east of the Frost Island. Then, the sea where the ship disappeared was most likely deep in the southern part of the Frost Island. Lu Ping had a rough idea of what to do. He said again, "Fine, call Little Hai and Degui out first." Wang Qi and a group of Zhenling core forging cultivators were nervously looking at the Mara group coming over from the sea. The power that the Mara family had displayed in front of Zhenling caused the entire Zhenling core forging cultivators to feel an oppressive atmosphere. At this time, a sound transmission sword suddenly cut through the air. Wang Qi felt the scabbard on his waist that was specially used to receive sound transmission swords vibrate. He raised his hand and the sword immediately fell into his hand. Wang Qi scanned with his divine sense and hurriedly turned to a middle-stage core forging cultivator who was obviously a third-generation disciple. He said, "Martial Uncle Xian Liang, teacher has sent a message for this disciple to go over. Please allow me." Who was Wang Qi's teacher? Even though Taoist Master Xian Liang did not want Wang Qi to leave, his team of 8 core forging cultivators could form a complete Smalt's 3 talents 5 elements Tao soldier formation. With Taoist Master Xian Liang's cultivation at the 4th level of core forging, he could use this Tao soldier formation to fight against a late-stage or even peak core forging cultivator with the strength of 7 early-stage core forging cultivators. Although Wang Qi's cultivation was not the highest among the 8, his strength was not weak. Normal 3rd-level core forging cultivators would have to retreat in front of Wang Qi's sharp sword skills. Even Taoist Master Xian Liang felt his heart palpitate when facing Wang Qi's sword skills. Once Wang Qi left, the Tao soldier formation could still be used, but its power would be greatly reduced. However, Taoist Master Xian Liang did not have the guts to not let Wang Qi go. Although Taoist Master Xian Liang was also a 3rd-generation disciple and had some fame among them, he was promoted to an inner disciple at the same time as Chen Lian. However, Taoist Master Xian Liang's status was far lower than Chen Lian's. Moreover, Chen Lian was now a weapon forging grandmaster, which was no weaker than a Dharma adept. As for Lu Ping's status, it was even lower. Taoist Master Xian Liang said helplessly, Mara is approaching the warning zone. He will be fighting soon. Go and come back quickly. As soon as Wang Qi left, one of the cultivators in Taoist Master Xian Liang's team said angrily, what's so great about him? He just has a good teacher. Another cultivator laughed coldly. So what if he has a good teacher? At least he can save his disciple at this critical moment. Can your teachers do that? Another cultivator said, Xian Gang, Xian Tai, don't talk nonsense. The cultivator called Xian Tai retorted, how is this nonsense? Taoist Master Xian Liang called his eldest disciple away at this critical moment to avoid the upcoming battle. Taoist Xian Liang knew that Xian Gang and Xian Tai were the disciples of Grand Ancestor Tian Shu. Almost everyone in Zhenling's sect knew that Grand Ancestor Tian Shu and Grand Ancestor Tian Ling didn't get along. So, it was not surprising that Xian Gang and Xian Tai didn't have a good impression of Wang Qi, who came from Chonghua Manor. Although Taoist Master Xian Liang was unhappy that Lu Xianping called Wang Qi away, he did not want the two brothers to talk nonsense and destroy the morale of the army. Thus, he said sternly, both of you shut up. As soon as he said that, a tiger's roar came from the island. Many of the blood condensation disciples on the island felt dizzy and ringing in their ears. They quickly covered their ears. Where did the tiger's roar come from? Chapter 9:19. Lu Ping slapped the 3-meter-long and 5-meter-tall tiger, causing it to tumble. He scolded, shut up. Lu Xiaohai finally got out of the golden house, which wasn't small, but looked narrow in Lu Xiaohai's eyes. He was in a great mood and couldn't help but roar. However, Lu Ping slapped him right on the head. Lu Xiaohu's domineering aura of a tiger suddenly became domineering. He lay on the ground and covered his eyes with his 2 tiger paws. He didn't look like the spirit of the tiger demon clan in the past. Instead, he looked like a frightened giant cat. Lu Dagui slowly crawled out of the golden house. Lu Ping handed an escape talisman to Wang Qi and said, you are my eldest disciple, the second disciple of Zhenling's current leader, Lu Tianling, Laozu. You have no reason to retreat from the Battle of Frost Island. Only after a bloody battle can you fully understand the responsibilities of a disciple of Zhenling. Lu Ping paused and said, I don't need you to understand this now. However, I won't let you die in vain in this battle. You must have heard of this escape talisman. Take it and use it well. As for Lu Xiaohai and Lu Dagui, one of them can attack and the other can defend. They can support you. With the 3 of you working together, I think even a middle-stage core forging cultivator can't do anything to you. Tianshan Laozu and the other 2 were also shocked by the sudden tiger roar. They knew where the tiger roar came from. Tianshan Laozu asked, what is this kid doing? How did he catch a tiger demon and bring it to Frost Island? The ancestor of Tianshan said, I'm afraid it's not an ordinary tiger demon. Although this roar sounds weak, it has a momentum of looking down on the world. I'm afraid it's not the authentic lineal bloodline of Taoist Hu. Tanshu Laozu said with a dark face, this martial nephew Lu has always been bold and talented, but he is too reckless. If we really capture Taoist Hu's lineal descendant and make him our pet with intelligence, won't we make a strong enemy for our sect? Tianshan Laozu knew about the conflict between Tianshu Laozu and Lu Ping, but Tianshu Laozu's words made sense, so he didn't say much. On the other hand, Laozu Tianqing said, that kid is as cunning as a ghost. When has he ever been taken advantage of? Senior martial brother Tianshu, don't worry. Tianshu Laozu's expression darkened, but he did not say anything more. He raised his head and saw a ray of light flying towards the Zhenling Tao soldier formation that was gathering at the coast. Wang Qi didn't know that he had been noticed by a Dharma manifestation Laozu when he returned to spiritual master Xian Liang's Tao soldier formation. Right now, he was completely immersed in the secret art that Lu Ping had just taught him. This secret art was a secret art that Lu Ping had gotten from spirit beast taming sect Sangyu. Sangyu saw that Lu Ping had many spirit pets with extraordinary potential and achievements. She saw that Lu Ping was only using them roughly and exclaimed that it was a waste. That was why she taught this secret art to Lu Ping. This secret art was obtained by spirit beast taming sect from a senior cultivator and could not be considered a direct disciple of the spirit beast taming sect. However, this secret art itself was an incredible existence among the secret arts collected by the spirit beast taming sect. Wang Qi's return caused Xian Gang and Xian Tai's expressions to darken, but spiritual master Xian Liang also heaved a sigh of relief. Perfected Xian Liang knew that the Dao soldier formation team he was leading was about to face a fierce battle. Not only did Wang Qi's return make the Dao soldier formation complete, but it also increased the chances of everyone surviving the battle. Spiritual master Xian Liang was also a person with a clear mind. When he saw that Wang Qi was not transferred away from Frost Island by Lu Ping, he admired Lu Ping's righteousness. At the same time, he immediately realized that Wang Qi must have received some benefits from Lu Ping. With Lu Ping's treasure boy skills, this life-saving benefit might not even be comparable to spiritual master Xian Liang's trump card. At that time, spiritual master Xian Liang might have to be more careful. Perhaps, he might even be able to save his own life. Just as spiritual master Xian Liang was about to ask Wang Qi something, a deep voice suddenly sounded, "Disciples of Jinling, go out and meet the enemy." Spiritual master Xian Liang suddenly raised his head and realized that Mara's army had already approached 5 kilometers away from Frost Island. On the wide coastline that Jinling was guarding, there were 12 blood condensation realm cultivators forming a Tao soldier formation. Each Tao soldier formation consisted of about 80 people. There were also 12 Dao soldier formations consisting of 8 core forging realm cultivators. Other than these, there were more than 10 late core forging realm cultivators following behind these Dao soldier formations. Some were in groups of 3 to 5, while others were alone. After exiting the island's protective formation, they charged towards Mara's army. Tian Shan, Tian Cheng, and Tian Shu patriarchs watched as the two opposing torrents crashed into each other. The earth-shattering battle cries even overshadowed the roars of magic spells and magic treasures. Jinling's side had the advantage of the Dao soldier formation. At the beginning of the battle, the two sides had similar cultivation levels. Jinling's Dao soldier formation was able to suppress the surging Mara's army. However, Mara's army had the advantage in numbers. Once the cultivators in the Dao soldier formation were killed or injured after paying the price of tens of little Mara's lives, then the entire Dao soldier formation would have to change its operation. At the same time, the power of the Dao soldier formation would have to be weakened. Even if his strength was usually higher than cultivators of the same level, where did he get the courage to challenge the great Azura, who was equivalent to a 9th stage core forging cultivator, or even a peak stage core forging cultivator? He was really overestimating his own strength. Disbelief, shame, and mockery were the final feelings that the mysterious steel and mysterious iron brothers felt at the moment of life and death. Chapter 920. In front of Lu Ping, there was a small flag revolving around him. Although Lu Ping was sitting on the ground motionlessly, his mind was focused on the small flag. To be more precise, Lu Ping's divine will was focused on the few mysterious runes on the small flag. Ever since Lu Ping had advanced to the core forging stage, he had obtained this mysterious small flag from Jinling's Heaven's Inheritance Cave. Although he knew that this small flag would be of great help to Lu Ping's divine will, and Lu Ping had suspected that there might be other secrets to this small flag, Lu Ping's level at that time had not been able to discover any clues. Hence, as time passed, Lu Ping's curiosity gradually faded. However, this small flag was still an extremely rare divine will treasure in the world of cultivation. Although it only had one function and was weak, it was still very valuable in the world of cultivation. This situation continued as Lu Ping's level of cultivation increased to the peak of the core forging stage, and his divine will was already comparable to that of a mid-Dharma adept. However, he still could not discover any other secrets of this small flag. It was only after the discovery of the vast sea relics that the vast sea bell had been rung twice by Dongyi Laozu and Demon King Kong Jing. At first, Lu Ping was caught off guard and almost suffered a loss. However, when the bell rang for the second time, Lu Ping, who was on guard, discovered that the originally ordinary surface of the small flag had a few mysterious runes that Lu Ping had never seen before. And it was precisely because of the appearance of these runes that Lu Ping was able to easily block the attack of the vast sea bell when the bell rang for the second time. At this time, Lu Ping was naturally very interested in the small flag's changes. The few runes that were revealed were obviously not all of the small flag's secrets. However, after a period of time, although Lu Ping tried his best to unravel the secrets of these runes and at the same time hoped to discover more of the small flag's secrets, there was no progress. However, this also allowed Lu Ping to discover that this small flag not only helped in the use of divine will, but it was also extremely beneficial in the expansion of divine will and in defense. This was until Lu Ping had consecutively fought with 4 Dharma adepts, one of whom was even a mid-Dharma adept. This caused Lu Ping to have no choice but to rely on the small flag's help. At this time, Lu Ping discovered that the small flag once again had a few other runes. The existence of these runes not only made it easier for Lu Ping to use his own divine will, but it also helped Lu Ping's divine will to defend against the attacks of the other Dharma adepts. It was also because of the small flag's changes that Lu Ping was able to severely injure a Dharma adept with a single blow. This was also why Lu Ping was able to remain unscathed under the divine will attacks of a mid-Dharma adept and 2 early Dharma adepts. After the appearance of the vast sea bell, it was not that Lu Ping had not thought about whether the small flag in his hand was one of the 3 treasures of the vast sea. It was just that the power that the small flag currently displayed could not be compared to that of a spirit treasure. Secondly, the cloud sail was said to have been lost in the past and had been found by the demons. However, the small flag that Lu Ping had obtained from the secret cave of the Heaven's Inheritance Cave had many unexplained mysteries. Now that Lu Ping's divine sense had entered the small banner, he wanted to refine the newly emerged rune patterns so that he could better control the mysterious little banner. At the same time, he also wanted to see if he could find more rune patterns in the little banner by following the clues. Another ray of light streaked across the sky. Tian Shu Laozu took a look at the sound transmission sword, and his expression turned ugly. He said, "The other sects on Frost Island are also in a state of emergency. Up until now, they have found at least 20 traces of the blood Mara. The Jade Shura has not appeared since that day." Tian Cheng Laozu said loudly, "It looks like Mara wants to finish this battle in one go." Tian Shu Laozu asked, "How far are the battles of the other sects?" Tian Shu Laozu said in a low voice, "It's not looking good. Xianling sect is doing better, but the Songhai sect is using the island's protective formation to defend against Mara's attack. The situation over at the 12 forces is not looking good either." Tian Shu Laozu thought for a moment and said, "Don't worry about the 12 forces. Although we lost the Qiao family, as long as the remaining 11 join forces, even our sect will have to be wary of them. They will show their trump cards at the critical moment." Over at the Songhai sect, Nephew Lu used his divine will to severely injure a Dharma adept. The morale of the Songhai sect will be greatly affected, so it is expected that they will not be able to win. But the ones facing the real danger are still our sect. Although the Tao soldiers have taken the initiative to slow down Mara's attack on the island's protective formation, it is only a matter of time. After all, our sect is facing the strongest attack. Once the island's protective formation is trapped, our sect will have no room to retreat. Tian Shu Laozu flipped his hands and 2 flames flashed. He said, "We have to fight this battle no matter what. I just don't know when our sect's reinforcements will arrive." After a cultivator entered the Dharma stage, they began to control the power of space. Mara, who was above the Dharma stage, could also control the power of space. After Mara surrounded Frost Island, because of the appearance of Bloody Mara, the teleportation formation on Frost Island was also in danger. The reinforcements on Frost Island could not go through the teleportation formation and could only fly over. This gave Mara enough time to attack Frost Island. Mara's companion Dharma treasures and half-life Dharma treasures usually improved along with Mara's strength. The great Shura that Wang Qi and the others were facing had the strength of a late core forging cultivator. Naturally, The companion Dharma treasure in its hands was no weaker than a spirit-nurturing Dharma treasure. Although the golden scale sword was Lu Ping's personal sword, it was only a top-grade spirit-connected mystic treasure. Not to mention, Wang Qi's cultivation base was far from the great Shura's spear. Even with Wang Qi's 3 talents array formation, he might not be able to match the spear's power. However, just as the golden scale sword was about to hit the spear, a silver light instantly enveloped the golden scale sword, causing the golden longsword to be inlaid with a silver light. It merged with Wang Qi's golden sword aura. Clang. To everyone's surprise, the golden scale sword was able to deflect Azura's spear. Azura's spear, which had been brandished by the spear, was also deflected. The spear brushed past the right shoulders of the Dark Iron and Dark Iron brothers, cutting off 2 strips of flesh that were half a foot long. Blood dripped down into the sea. The power of Wang Qi's spear was not only unexpected by the Profound Steel and Profound Iron brothers, but also by the others. Even Wang Qi himself did not expect it to be so powerful that it could deflect the spear of a late core forging Great Shura. Although spiritual master Xian Liang was surprised, he was still the person in charge of the formation. Seeing that his side had blocked the Great Shura's sure-kill attack, he immediately used the power of the formation on himself while the Great Shura was still exhausted. He threw a short stick at the back of the Great Shura's head. After the Great Shura's attack failed, the 3 talents and 5 elemental Dao soldier formation continued to operate. Spiritual master Xian Liang could no longer dodge this attack. He was hit so hard that he could not get up for a moment. He fainted and fell from the sky towards the sea. When the other cultivators saw that spiritual master Xian Liang's attack had succeeded, they hurriedly operated the formation and chased after him. Although Wang Qi's hands were numb from the Great Shura's spear, the Profound Steel and Profound Iron brothers ignored their injuries and attacked the falling Great Shura. Before the Great Shura could completely wake up, he was already dismembered in midair. Although spiritual master Xian Liang's team had killed a late core forging Great Shura, the Dao soldier formation could not operate smoothly because Profound Steel and Profound Iron were heavily injured. Naturally, the power of the Dao soldier formation would decrease as well. Spiritual master Xian Liang made a prompt decision and immediately ordered everyone to retreat towards the island's protective formation. Just as everyone was about to retreat back to Frost Island, a late core forging Great Azura who was fighting spiritual master Xian Yu suddenly attacked the great army formation formed by spiritual master Xian Liang and the others after receiving a blow from spiritual master Xian Yu. At this moment, because everyone was about to retreat to the island, they had already begun to slack off. They did not expect that this Azura would actually ignore Sage Xuanyu's attack and forcefully attack. For a moment, they were all caught unprepared. Perfected Xian Liang shouted and tried his best to command everyone to activate the Dao soldier formation, intending to maximize everyone's defense. The protective formation around the 8 of them was about to run out of energy. The 3 talents and 5 elements had combined into one, but they suddenly realized that Wang Qi had used an extremely strange defensive technique. Perfected Xian Liang's heart moved, and he shouted, "Use Xian Qi's protection divine ability." Everyone channeled their quintessential essence into the huge tortoiseshell shield that Wang Qi had conjured with the Dao soldier formation. Kacha! There was a shattering sound. Although Wang Qi's defensive divine art had been shattered by Azura's unexpected attack, it still managed to block the attack. Wang Qi felt a great force coming from the shattered tortoiseshell shield. Including Reverend Xian Liang and the others, they were all thrown backwards by this great force and fell onto Frost Island. The Great Azura had forcefully taken a blow from Reverend Xian Yu, and its back was smashed to pieces by countless raindrops. The Azura turned around and fled. It was about to shake off Reverend Xian Yu who was chasing after it, but a cold light shot towards it and pierced through its heart. Reverend Du Feng withdrew his sword and stood. Reverend Xian Yu seemed to be very dissatisfied with Reverend Du Feng's interference, and turned around to attack the other Great Azura without even greeting him. But at this time, Reverend Du Feng's cry of shock entered Reverend Xian Yu's ears. "Watch out!" Reverend Xian Yu's heart tightened. His intuition from 200 to 300 years of life and death battles told him that he was most likely facing a moment of life and death. Reverend Xian Yu tried his best to shake off this feeling of being on the edge of life and death, but it was to no avail. This feeling only grew stronger. A furious roar that seemed to come from heaven's Laozu came from Frost Island. "You dare!" Yet this voice was the last call Reverend Xian Yu heard. Then, he felt that Reverend Du Feng seemed to be trying to save him with all his strength, but his own consciousness seemed to be frozen by a strange coldness and thrown into a bottomless abyss. His vision was quickly swallowed by darkness. Lu Ping had appeared on the battlefield before Heaven's Laozu, but he only had time to save Du Feng, who was trying to kill Reverend Xian Yu together with him. Reverend Xian Yu himself had turned into countless pieces of ice and fell towards the sea surface. Not even his bones were left. Chapter 9:21. After receiving the Jade Scroll, Lu Ping knew that Mara's attack on Frost Island would be a hard battle. Therefore, after refining the new runes on the little flag, he quietly left the secret room and headed out of Frost Island. Lu Ping's original plan was to strike first, but he didn't expect Mara to act first and take spiritual Master Xian Yu's life. Xue Shura, who ambushed enlightened Master Xian Yu, initially wanted to kill enlightened Master Du Feng as well. But unexpectedly, Lu Ping had already made his move. The charming autumn sword morphed into countless fishes and formed a wall of sword light in front of enlightened Master Du Feng, whose chest had caved in. The seeping sword art was good at both offense and defense. It managed to block Mara's fatal blow. At this time, Tianqing Laozu and spiritual Master Xianxin were approaching Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping didn't hand Du Feng over to Laozu. Instead, he pushed Du Feng over to spiritual Master Xianxin, who was in the core forging realm. Just as Tianqing Laozu was confused, his expression suddenly changed. He flipped his palm and pushed backwards. A fire tiger roared and pounced behind him. At the same time, an enormous force came from Tianqing Laozu's back. Although the fire tiger had blocked most of the force, the remaining force still pushed Tianqing Laozu dozens of steps forward before he could stabilize himself. Ancestor Tianqing suddenly looked back and happened to see a column of water turn into mist under the flame, covering the area within a radius of dozens of feet. However, this mist didn't hinder Laozu's mental investigation. A water Azura dressed as a woman was holding a spirit treasure that looked like a wine cup. She was walking towards Tianqing Laozu through the mist. On the other side, Lu Ping saw that spiritual Master Xianxin had safely sent Du Feng back to Frost Island. When he turned around, the ice Azura that had ambushed and killed spiritual Master Xian Yu was already faintly appearing in front of Lu Ping. Its transparent body looked like it was about to be completely covered by the light. After spiritual Master Xianxin brought Du Feng back to Frost Island, Laozu of Sky Mountain had already sent the news. Spiritual Master Xianxin immediately commanded the cultivators of Zhenling to use the 3 talents 5 elements Dao soldier formation to resist Mara's attacks. At the same time, this was to reduce the losses of his disciples. The disciples of Zhenling gradually retreated and began to rely on the island's protective formation to resist Mara's attacks. At the same time, they also wanted to free up the space outside the island. When Dharma adepts began to fight, the area outside the island was no longer safe. Seeing that the disciples of Zhenling had begun to retreat, Mara surged forward with the intention of breaking through the obstruction of the disciples of Zhenling and shattering the island's protective formation. Then, he would enter Frost Island and occupy the large spirit vein. Meanwhile, the people of Zhenling would rely on the formation's support to stop Mara's attacks. Lu Ping's pair of flying swords circled in the air. The ice Azura in front of him suddenly revealed a sinister smile. Lu Ping's mental consciousness swept out and immediately discovered that the water vapor in the surroundings had begun to condense into tiny ice needles that were hard to see with the naked eye. The ice Azura's hands clasped and pushed, and the tiny ice needles from all directions all flew towards Lu Ping, causing Lu Ping to not even have the space to dodge. Lu Ping's pair of swords shot out and went straight for the ice Azura's neck. At the same time, he pressed down slightly with his hands, causing a waterspout to hang upside down. A cylindrical water barrier surrounded Lu Ping in the middle. The countless ice needles had just shot into the water barrier when they were hit by the crisscrossing undercurrents within the water barrier, causing them to lose their momentum and quickly melt within it. The ice azura opened its mouth and spat out a gust of cold air dozens of feet away. As soon as the upside-down waterspout came into contact with the cold air, it completely froze into ice. A huge icicle, together with Lu Ping, was sealed within the icicle. However, at that moment, the ice azura's expression changed. It punched out, and the icicle exploded into countless pieces. However, there was no trace of Lu Ping among them. When he looked down, he saw a pair of flying swords crisscrossing, and 3 great shuras had already been beheaded, pierced through the chest, and cut in half at the waist. One of the great shuras was also equivalent to a late-stage core forging realm cultivator. The ice azura was furious, and with it as the center, a gust of cold air spread out in all directions. Soon, a layer of white frost formed in the void, forming the outline of a human figure. Lu Ping lifted the cloud light 5 elements robe, and the ice azura's ice sword was already stabbing towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression was solemn. This ice sword was obviously the ice azura's accompanying spiritual treasure. In the hands of the ice azura, it was an existence comparable to a calamity spiritual treasure. There was a flash of light under Lu Ping's feet, and his entire person flashed in all directions. However, as the ice sword was waved, these figures were all frozen into ice sculptures. Only Lu Ping's real body was caught up by the ice sword while he was dodging. At this time, it was too late to withdraw the autumn dew sword, but Lu Ping crossed his hands, and 2 long swords crisscrossed. After 2 clanging sounds, although the pair of flying swords were no match for the ice sword spirit treasure, the ice sword was also hit by the flying swords and stopped in midair, unable to chase after the ice sword. The autumn dew sword flew back, and together with the pair of flying swords that Lu Ping had cast, they circled around, facing the ice sword in the hands of the ice azura. The thin stream sword. Whether it was the thin stream sword or the long stream sword, each sword had condensed 9 treasures, and was a top-notch spirit-nurturing spiritual treasure. In addition, Lu Ping had inherited the vast sea sword technique, so he was able to fully activate the power of the pair of flying swords. Under the combination of the 2 swords, the pair of flying swords were barely qualified to compete with spirit-nurturing spiritual treasures. Just as Lu Ping and the ice azura were fighting, Tiancheng Laozu had already fought with the other water azura. Although Tiancheng Laozu had the protection of the mother and child traction formation, and his fire-based skills were superb, under the attacks of the water azura's accompanying spiritual treasure, he was constantly losing ground. He had enough defense, but not enough offense. Another jade scroll cut through the sky, and Tiancheng Laozu took it and looked at it. He laughed coldly and threw the jade scroll to Tianshu Laozu, who was beside him, and said, "The water mist pavilion is asking for help." Tianshu Laozu took the jade scroll and scanned it with his divine will. He said angrily, "2 Dharma adepts are fighting against a blood azura, and they still want to ask for help? What should our sect do? A few tens of disciples have perished. Could it be that the pressure they're under is heavier than our sect? Over 100 disciples of our sect have perished, and even 7 or 8 core forging realm cultivators have perished. Moreover, there are over 10 disciples that have entered the battle while carrying injuries. How much pressure is their Mistwater Pavilion suffering?" Tian Shan Laozu said, "It's the island's protective formation that can't hold on any longer. It's not that the 2 Dharma adepts of the Water Mist Pavilion can't stop the Blood Azura. Instead, it's the Blood Azura that's tangling with the 2 of them, causing them to be unable to help their disciples. Now, the disciples of the Water Mist Pavilion can no longer rely on the island's protective formation, and are hiding within it." Tian Shu Laozu said anxiously, "Doesn't that mean that the Water Mist Pavilion can only be attacked passively? It's only a matter of time before the island's protective formation is broken through?" Tian Shan Laozu sighed and said, "If one part of Frost Island is broken through, then it's completely broken through. We still have to save the Water Mist Pavilion, but there's no need to rush. The Water Mist Pavilion won't fall so easily." There was an explosion in the sky. Tian Shan and Tian Shu Laozu looked up and saw Tiancheng Laozu rushing back from midair. He crashed hard into the protective shield of the island's protective formation, and ripples were created. On the other side of the sky, the water Shura that was fighting with Tianqing Laozu was also retreating. No matter how much he flipped and bumped, the crystal baron in his hand didn't dare to shake at all. It was as if the crystal baron would shatter if he moved it. Just as the water Shura stabilized his body, a cloud of mist appeared in the crystal baron. The mist flowed up along the burnt body of the water Shura. After the mist flowed past, the injuries caused by Tianqing Laozu began to recover rapidly. Tianqing Laozu jumped up from the island's protective formation. A few Mara who saw the opportunity rushed forward and saw Tianqing Laozu's face turn red. He spat out a mouthful of blood and turned it into a flame in midair. It turned the few Mara who rushed forward into ashes. Tianqing Laozu coughed hard and scolded, "Son of a bitch, you want to take advantage of the old man? Why don't you take a look at your own teeth?" His words seemed to be directed at the few Shuras who had been burned to ashes, but it also seemed to be directed at the blood Shura who was holding the crystal baron. Seeing that Tianqing Laozu was at a disadvantage, Tianshu Laozu was anxious and wanted to go forward to help. However, Tianshan Laozu reached out and stopped him. "Wait, junior brother Tianqing can still hold on. Once we go out, other blood Mara will come out to fight. Let me go first." Tianshu Laozu heard this and said, "But senior brother, you will still find blood Mara to fight when you go out." Tianshan Laozu smiled and said, "The most important thing now is to buy time. I think the cultivators from our sect and other sects are already on their way." Tianqing Laozu had already fought with the water Shura again. However, this time, Tianqing Laozu did not dare to go too far away from the island's protective formation. With the support of the formation, Tianqing Laozu could borrow the power of the island's protective formation to fight against the water Shura who had the accompanying spiritual treasure. In this way, although Tianqing Laozu had the support of the island's protective formation, he was still at a disadvantage when fighting against the water Shura. After all, while Tianqing Laozu borrowed the power of the formation, he was also bound by the formation and could not roam around in the sky like the water Shura. However, Tianqing Laozu only defended and did not attack, so the water Shura could not do anything to him for a while. Tianshan Laozu flew through the air and walked out of the island's protective formation. He did not bring the protective shield of the mother and child traction formation with him. A green Shura was standing in front of Tianshan Laozu. Tianshan Laozu seemed to know that there was a Shura here and did not show any surprise at its appearance. An angry roar came from the other side of Frost Island. The ice Shura was filled with hatred. The human cultivator in front of it was like a slippery loach. He clearly had the strength to fight it, but he chose not to fight it head-on. Instead, he relied on his escape skills to wander around, hiding from place to place. However, what angered Isazura even more was that not only was this person dodging all over the place, he just had to purposefully charge towards the Devil Azura army that was attacking Frost Island. His 4 flying swords rampaged through the Devil Azura army, and more than a dozen little Azuras were often turned into broken limbs. Even if he occasionally crashed into the Great Azura army, those Great Azuras whose strength was equivalent to that of the middle and early stage of the core forging realm would rarely be able to withstand a single blow from him. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.